Okay, this is going to be episode 23 of OverSight. I'm the usual host, Thorin. I'll now proceed to make light banter with Monty, at which point, if possible, I will sidetrack so much that I don't even mention who the person is who's the guest and or their actual role. I have done that on a number of episodes, we just start talking to them. But that's also because, Monty, I know you might not be aware of this, but this isn't actually a television broadcast from 1950 or radio. Like, people actually, first of all, know all these people on the show. And secondly, there is a description box below where they can read who they are. So I know people get confused by that. They think it is like a broadcast, but we're just playing it being on television here. But enough about the Overwatch League. Right. So how you doing, Monty? How's your life? How's your life at the moment?
Fine. As we know from my history, I'm super good at just doing things for the cameras. So that's why I was cut out to do this role in the first place. I've been accused of that on several occasions over my career. So here I am.
What about the fact, though, that we have actually had, not technically half of the Overwatch season, because obviously we are going to have the playoffs as well as the other two stages, but we're getting through it, right? It doesn't feel like it started that long ago.
We are, in fact, getting through it. And once we're halfway through the regular season now officially. Obviously, the playoffs will go into July. And after that, we will have, a normal sports length season. We won't have 11 months or a constant year-round flux of things. We'll take a nice break and people will be excited for season 2.
The saddest thing is, Monty, is that every time I actually think of complaints about the Overwatch League, some of them actually are things that I like. Like, I actually, I would complain from a viewer's perspective that, like, we're halfway through, and if you're a team like Shanghai Dragons or even the Fuel, it's basically pointless. Like, you're just done anyway. You could win a stage, but you can't, you're not going to do anything in the playoffs. It's done for you. But in a way, that's actually good. Like, I want them to be punished as hard as possible for not being good at the game, making teams,
I
rosters.
don't. This is why in our show with Super, when I discussed formats, if we had each stage in isolation giving playoff points, there would still be hope for these teams, perhaps, if they perform very well in stages 3 and 4. You get a couple top 3 finishes and you could still pull out into the playoffs maybe. But I will be working on that with Blizzard, trying to make that dream a reality.
See, that's just again, as usual, I like to give people a little tease. I like to let them behind the curtain a little bit, Monty. What Monty does is, right, he actually understands, like, okay, one of the great basketball coaches of all time was Phil Jackson of the Bulls and the Lakers, right? And one of the things he was very famous for is, as a coach, you would think you do all your coaching behind doors in the locker room, with the players. But what he would do is he would also use the media to coach the players. So, for example, if you want to make a player do something or challenge him in some way, you make a comment in the media that's going to get back to him, and then he thinks, what the fuck, what's my coach saying that for? And then he might respond in any particular way, right? So what Monty does is, obviously, if behind the scenes he could fix all these things, he would. If he could talk to Nate,
I'm trying.
If he could communicate with Team 4, if he could do any of these things, but he's also got to use the public method as well, where you also state publicly your thoughts, right?
Well, my thoughts are my thoughts, and these are the things that I think should be done. I'm obviously telling Blizzard these very same things internally. So we could start with that. I know people love format discussions, and what better person to talk about hope for the rest of the season than Harsha here, the coach/analyst of the San Francisco Shock, who I assume, with their new players coming in, would love an opportunity to have each stage in isolation where, he was getting some level of points. And the general idea here, and this is actually, I think, my favorite part of the League of Legends format, is that, to explain it briefly, I know people get really bored when I talk about this, is that the spring split in League of Legends gives fewer world championship points than the summer split. There's a recency bias. And the idea, I think, is to contain every stage and say, for example, if you get first place in stage 1, you get 100 points. And so on down the line, 1 through 12. And if you get first place in stage 2, you get 120. First place in stage 3, you get 140. First place in stage 4, 160. The exact number of points are really irrelevant. The point is you get escalating playoff points because we exist in a system where the Mercy patch that we played in stage 1 is not going to be relevant by the time the playoffs roll around. So you want to reward teams who do well throughout the season, but you want to bias the points towards the end of the season so you get the most competitive teams on the recent patch. And also, I think it helps keep a lot of hope alive for these teams, because a team like the Shock that's adding a lot of young talent right now should still have a shot for the playoffs if they perform super well in stages 3 and 4, no pun with the players. So what do you think about this, Harsha? Considering you are currently in this situation, and even if you do place top 3, it's still very unlikely that you would be able to make a playoff spot.
Yeah, I personally prefer the League of Legends system where it's like biased toward, or I guess weighted towards the summer or like the later stages of the season. I feel like having no weighting is kind of just comes from sports, just because like there's not really a meta game that changes so
there's no
drastically.
patching. You don't patch basketball 3 times a season.
Right. So like Overwatch can look incredibly different. It already does look really different compared to the Mercy patch. So I would agree that I think weighting it towards the later stages of the season would be better.
And now we can talk to our other guest, WizardHyeong, who this doesn't apply to at all because his team is firmly on top of the standings right now.
No, he likes the current format, Monty. He thinks they should probably stick with it,
He's thrilled with it, by this metric, he ended stage 1 in first place in terms of results that actually matter towards the playoffs. He ended stage 2, both in the results that matter and the results that don't matter, except for lining his pockets with some extra dollars. So for him, he's probably thrilled because he didn't technically lose anything to the Spitfire besides some money in stage 1.
Exactly. And then obviously he didn't even have to play him in stage 2 because he got lucky.
I mean,
because Fusion did really well. But one of it, he would have loved to have played them.
Yeah, not trying to be cocky, but why should it matter to us, to be honest? So
very good. I like that answer. And you should be cocky. This show is about, we're all preening peacocks here, showing off our beautiful plumage. It's your time to shine, Wizard.
Okay, I got it.
And also, technically, I think you're technically Wizard Dongseng to me, by the way. So.
I see.
Plus, also, as everyone's now finding out with the Dallas Fuel, like the notion that Koreans aren't cocky, that's just all kept internal. And there's a very strict hierarchical system to prevent them from being cocky. So if you let them loose, if you tell them, just like all the other Western players, have your own opinions and tell us all. Don't open that box. That's Pandora's box.
Oh, no. The cockiness comes out. See, it's usually just kept tightly the lid is kept tightly on it publicly. But speaking of Pandora's box, if you get them in private, you have a few beers, you open that box and tons of crazy shit comes out that you would never imagine. It's glorious. I really enjoy it.
Okay, right. The problem is whenever you do an episode like this that's after the playoffs, it's too hard to recreate all the circumstances and talk about the matches, but without pretending that we don't know who won the stage and all that. So I actually think it's better to work your way backwards. So let's just start at the top. As we referenced, Wizard, your team won the stage. Again, obviously you didn't play Spitfire this time. You played Fusion.
Yeah.
Was your team the best team in Overwatch League in stage 2?
Pardon?
Was your team
the New York Excelsior?
The best, meaning number 1 in stage 2? That was the most recent part of the Overwatch League, a league that you live and play.
I think we have still a long way to go, but
wait a minute, you won the league. I'm not asking how you're the best ever. Come on.
So if you look at the video, if you look at the Twitch, when we're the ceremony, right?
Yes.
I was very unhappy, as you can see from my facial expression. Just unhappy with my strategy, unhappy with some of the players' performance and some of the shot calling. And just I just see it a little bit shitty. And we're just related better than other teams. That's it, I guess. So
one interesting factor that happened after your win was that Ark gave an interview where he said that you guys had not prepared very much for the Fusion. That most of your preparation had, I think, reasonably gone into Seoul and London. Because you
not even Seoul.
Just London.
We were waiting for that revenge, and then just Philadelphia made that happen, and we were super confused. What's going on? And then Yeah. So
Fair. We were all
Yeah.
pretty confused. I think Philadelphia played much better and fixed a lot of their mistakes. So that's true then. So considering that New York, you guys, I think, have done an exceptional job of coaching the team and providing very specific strategies for specific opponents. I think you guys plan for opponents and create counter strategies better than any other team in the league right now, which is a part of your success. So given that was the case, is that part of the problem you faced with Philadelphia, is that you were not as prepared as you would have liked to have been?
That's it. That was exactly the problem. And so we didn't prepare like at all for the Philadelphia and like for like Route 66 and Lijiang Tower. We were pretty much using the strategy that we made for London, the counter London strategy, and then we're just using the same thing, and that's kind of like brain dead for like our coaching staff. My bad. But then we realized, oh shit, we're not playing against London, and we gotta adjust it, and we adjusted after the halftime, and we won as always.
There you go.
Wizard.
Great, as always, except for that one time you got reverse swept in stage 1. But now, the new always. The new
Wizard.
always.
Being as, I mean, okay, so obviously people will say, well, you played the Fusion before, but obviously that was like weeks ago, and every match changes and you do different things, right? Next time you play against the London Spitfire, it could be weeks from now, everything will have changed. So can you give us some sort of insight as to what you were going to try and do if you had have played against the Spitfire? Can you give us like some of what your idea was to this time beat them?
Oh, can we actually, I think the best way to do this is, can we go map by map? Because he just said that they were using the strategies for the Spitfire. So we can actually talk about the strategy, because I would love to talk about the strategies that they were showing. And talk about why it didn't work versus the Fusion and why it could have worked versus the Spitfire. So now we know he has dropped the information that these were the prepared strategies against London. So let's talk about the strategies, right? That seem reasonable? We can get Harsha's opinion on the strats, right?
I mean, okay, so I'm like super honest person. I just can't lie. And in a long-term relationship with my fans or like the viewers, I think I just want to be super honest. But
Good.
If I tell everything about our strategy, like, or maybe like 50% about our strategy, maybe some teams like San Francisco Shock, for example, will take advantage of it.
All right.
And,
all right.
A little bit worried, but I don't know. I guess.
Okay, Wizard.
I'm on this show, yeah. I gotta tell a little bit, I guess, right?
No, you don't have to say anything you don't want to. It's not a coercion effort. So I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Let me explain something quickly. There's a common misunderstanding in English, right, where people actually think that the word strategy means the word tactic, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is people think that when you say strategy, you mean like this guy goes left and then the other guy comes behind him, whereas actually strategy means the general plan that you had, and tactic is the exact specific like battleground thing that you would do.
Player movements and everything.
I agree. If you told us every tactic that was involved, you'd give us a lot of insight into every element of your team. So, but the general strategy would be something along the lines of like, if they play
team composition,
in this way, we pull back until they come in. Can you give us some like broader?
Okay, starting with the Route 66 then. Is that okay?
Yes. No. Let's set the stage. So before you start, sorry, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page here. And if you don't want to say something, Harsha and I will discuss it. And then
speculate. Exactly.
We'll speculate, and you can do what Ark does and sit there and smile if you think you're really smart, okay?
Basically, this will be like any time a pro player in Overwatch gives their side, right? You'll give us your side, and then we'll fill in all the blanks with our own bullshit and speculate all over the place, and everyone will take everything as truth.
Okay. So let's talk about this. So before you get into the strategy, so Philadelphia Fusion, to set the scene, when they come into the finals, it's Route 66. They literally just won on Route 66. So their last map against Spitfire was Route 66. Their first map against NYXL is Route 66. Now, you know that they are going to run Carpe and Snillo. You know they're going to run Widowmaker and Tracer. Now, your defensive composition is as follows. Sebilby on Widowmaker, Mono on Orisa, Meko on Diva, Jonak on Zenyatta, Ark on Mercy, and Junkrat on Libero. Libero on Junkrat, rather. Yeah. So what this says to me is, I am anticipating a dive composition that London is going to play against us, and I am not expecting Carpe to try and flank around the side of the Orisa shield and kill my Widow and or Junkrat.
I mean, so the basic idea behind the strategy was, so basically we're expecting the same thing from London for that map. So we're expecting Birdring to play Widowmaker, and then Prophet to play Tracer. So basically same comp. And like Sebio B is really good Widowmaker, or Libero is a really good Widowmaker, but Birdring or Carpe is much scary Widowmaker, I would say, in general, right? So, I mean, it was totally different in that specific match, bud. So, how do we counter that Widowmaker? How do we give our own Widowmaker some advantage? Oh, let's have some shield. Probably some like Orisa. Why not? Just like a Junkertown strategy. And okay, so I wanna we wanna like we don't want to get distracted too much by their Tracer flanking. So how do we handle that? Oh, maybe like a Junkrat can handle this specific area or something. That would be ideal. And also there's a lot of burst damage to for when they dive in, when their tanks dive in, we have the power to, fight that, right? So that's like the basic idea. And we were totally expecting their Widowmaker to flank around and all that thing. But we literally came up with that strategy like a day before the match, and we have practiced that just once against like non-Overwatch League team. I mean XL2, and yeah, it's just that I was fucking tilted when I saw like I mean, because I was expecting that specific scenario where they're flanking, where their Widow's flanking, right? And we made a like backup plan for that, and that tactic, it didn't happen. So tilted. Absolutely.
Yeah, we won't go into the specific of that tactic. I mean, I think it's very reasonable, obviously, Emerald 66 to expect the Widow Tracer these days. It's the standard composition. So more of a failure of execution, you would say, in the end.
And also, Snillo was popping up.
He was. Well, so was Carpe was playing very well as well. But so Snillo was causing a lot of problems. And I think when we look at Snillo as a player, he plays a lot differently than many other tracers in that he's super patient and he will wait a very long time and hide in the back line. And as I was watching you guys play this map, Sabiel on the Widow was sort of repeatedly killed by him. He wasn't going for Jonak. He was not targeting Jonak at all. He was going for the enemy Widowmaker every single time, which is not how we typically think about tracers playing.
I mean, I guess.
Well,
I mean, I personally thought, I don't know, just when I saw the scenario develop where Carpe just went around and got 2 kills flanking, I didn't know what was going to contest him because you don't have a Winston. Obviously, you're using the Orisa shield to block off the front of big girls, and then you don't have a tracer to follow him around the map. So I mean, maybe you had a strat for that, but I just personally was I can see why Carpe did this, and I see why it worked.
That was my reaction as well. But I will trust that the strategy failed as opposed to my assessment of it.
Do you think that Fusion actually themselves planned this sort of stuff? Do you think they just played more feel and this is just how they happened to individually make the choices in the game? What would you say, Harsha? What would your speculation be?
I feel like a bit of... I mean, I'm sure they planned it to some degree, but I feel like Carpe is also a really aggressive player and he's somebody that would take those flanks. So, it's also just his instinct as well.
Right.
I personally, I think so when we were playing against Philadelphia, we were super confused because not only that we were mostly prepared for London, but their play style recently changed dramatically, insane. We're okay, so Philadelphia is this kind of team where they just type this kind of style and they're playing it pretty much completely differently. Maybe we can say adapting to the meta or something, but that really kind of fucked us up at the beginning.
What's different about their style now? I mean, obviously they have EQO, who they didn't have it until not that long ago. So what's changed for you?
I would say mostly the way their Winston, Fraggy, and the Tracer is playing. Yes. Just they were kind of like copying London's style of like Winston Tracer, and which was pretty scary, and we're not prepared for that, so we're not expecting that from like Philadelphia. So yeah,
what changed a lot, so as part of obviously as part of my preparation for going in and casting Philadelphia versus London, I was taking a look at the past times these teams had played. And it was really a night and day difference in terms of how they were approaching the dive. So when they lost really hard, they got 4-0'd by London earlier this stage. Oftentimes it would be Fraggy jumping in, and then every time London would counter dive and kill Boombox on the Zenyatta, or they would focus Fraggy down and then roll the rest of the team. And how Philadelphia was playing was super transparent. Now there was a huge difference in the way that they've been playing the last couple weeks. So when they played against the Gladiators and they played against the Valiant, I started to notice that they were using Fraggy to bait people in and then collapsing on them. Or you'd see Fraggy, he was saving his jump. He would flank around, hold on to his jump, and then people would think he was out of position, try to dive the back line, and he would save the supports.
Yeah.
And so now what we're seeing from the way that Philadelphia Fusion played and the way they played against London clearly expected them to make the same mistakes they did last time. But I think if you had watched the film of them against the Gladiator and the Valiant carefully, you'd realize that they were not going to make those mistakes any longer. And so this time, Fraggy's positioning was way better. He was just sticking to the supports every single time. It's like you could not get back onto the supports because they wouldn't play aggressively, which to me says that you need to play a more defensive composition against them. The dive is not going to be as effective any longer. So it was interesting to see this, but I really do have to give a lot of props to Philadelphia because beforehand, earlier in the stage, they were making so many positional errors. They were opening up so many opportunities for the other team to punish them. And then they went to a team that was much better about punishing opponents' engages. And to make a 180 that quickly was really startling. And I totally understand why London was confused by what was happening because they had played entirely differently compared to their past meeting.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of looking at a past performance and then comparing it to what he did the other day, Fraggy improved insanely where he wasn't taking very much damage before dives. He'd coordinated really well. And like you were saying, saving the jump is really important in this meta because, I mean, if you go in, you're just going to get punished and then you don't have an escape. If you walk forward, flanking and you aren't taking damage, even though you're the main tank, it's just significantly better play.
Harsha, do you actually think... Oh, sorry, go on, Wizard.
If I watched Philadelphia's recent matches, there have been 3-0, but yeah, go on.
Interesting.
What do you... Yeah, we'll get back to that. So I did in that one. Harsha, what do you think that Fusion is actually a better team right now than London Spitfire?
I mean, no, I think London. To be fair to Philly, I think that they are actually one of the right now probably the best Western team. But I think that London's probably a better team. They just hadn't prepared correctly, and I also think there's some of their players probably underperformed as well.
I think Bird Ring was particularly bad in this series, which is I'm not sure why. But
in what sense then? Because obviously this is a guy who was the MVP for most people of the last stage. So how is this guy? What's an underperformance for Birdring? What's the context there?
He looked like he was playing really emotionally, and by that I mean he was taking. It seemed like Carpe was popping off on that day, and Carpe and Snillo were both having very good individual performances. And the longer the match dragged on, Birdring would take increasingly risky widow peaks to try and get Carpe, and his positioning was such that he was much more open to punishment as a result. And those widow duels were pretty handily won by Carpe overall, but a lot of that was because I felt like Birdring wasn't playing with his team, or he was just doing insanely aggressive peaks on Carpe that were just getting him hammered. And if he keeps doing that over and over and over again, you have to think that he's tilted in some way because it was not a normal day of play for him. And he didn't display the level of intelligence about taking shots that we normally see from him.
Okay. Right. Because obviously one of the aspects of the way, again, to just tie back into the format that makes this actually quite unique, even for an esport, is the way the playoffs are just all played in one day and you just play without the time to prepare. And so I'm just going to say this right now because obviously fans will get mad triggered by this because, as always, fans want to believe every upset is like the best team winning and, you know, you're downplaying the favorite underdog, etc. But no, this is actually unlike every other esport, especially Korean ones. There's no prep time here. So it's not that if you had, like, for example, if you had a tournament tomorrow where it was all on one day and every team in Overwatch League played, Gladiators could win it. You know, there's a bunch of teams could win the tournament. But if you gave every single big playoff match a week's prep, the teams that prep the best would then gain an advantage. So I do think that definitely plays a part of this because logically, otherwise, you'd have to say Fusion is like tied for the best in the whole league. If you look at these two matches in a row, they looked amazing.
I think the other thing is that I think London didn't actually know who their opponent would be until
they couldn't, right? Exactly.
Yeah, because I think it was between Gladiators, Seoul, and Philly. Yeah,
it has to be said though. Now, obviously, that was decided only the day before, but it would have taken a Gladiators sweep of Boston. But even then, you're talking about only you would have one more day of prep, and you wouldn't be sure about your opponent. So I do agree with that, and I also think like watching Philly again, I big credit to them for how much they improved their communication and tactics in the game. Because that was, I found it extraordinary that they could fix so many flaws so quickly. When I was going back and reviewing their previous matchup, I was like really astounded. So I don't think it was really reasonable to expect that. But the other thing about Philadelphia too is we said this when Overwatch League started. This team has an immense amount of talent. And it's a matter of how long it takes for this talent to come together. And if they can continue to improve at this rate, because there's nothing to indicate that they are not going to be able to improve further, considering the leap that we've seen in their play from the beginning of stage 2 up until now, that they can't be competing with the best. On this one weekend, they were there. I do think that they were underestimated. I don't think they will be underestimated again. And I think that's going to be the real indicator.
Yeah.
What about this then? Because obviously when Fusion first came into the Overwatch League, one of the primary things to watch was Shadowburn. He was one of the best players in the team. He seemed like someone you build the team around, you know. And obviously we did not even see him play any of these matches here. He's currently not a part of the starting lineup. What do you think about a Fusion without Shadowburn?
I think EQO has demonstrated that he also has like immense talent. And also, I mean, I think this has been like harped on for a while at least, but Shadowburn's he's like a really, really passive player in the sense that he only goes in when he knows for sure there's like an opportunity. I'm not even like just talking about like his Dragon Blades, but he's more of like a cleanup Genji in the sense that he's going to be poking from like a reasonably safe range, and then he'll go in once he knows he can get a dash reset or whatever it is, right? So I feel like having somebody really aggressive like Carpe early on in the stage, so before I think Fraggy's improvement, and having someone like Fraggy who's also incredibly aggressive, I think you really want EQO because he synergizes really well with them, and then they kind of develop their strategy along the way.
So, what do you think about this, Mac?
Our team basically calls Philadelphia Fusion a Fusion treasure box. Like we have no idea like where Stilo or like EQO came from, and like what the heck, how are they so good, you know? Like so we just gave the name treasure box, and we also like kind of want to see how Sato, you know, will play. We're interested in, you know, that. So and yeah, so I mean they have definitely a lot of talent. And I think about EQ and like Shadowburn, I think it's mostly about who can play more flexible heroes, like much like diverse like hero pool. You know what I mean? So,
and we know that about EQO, considering he's now played basically everything.
Yeah.
even like surprise. I think the biggest surprise to me is like even his diva is pretty good. Like you wouldn't expect him to be able to pull that out, but he can. So his flexibility not in question. So let's talk about Sato, because you obviously are coming from the Korean scene. You were a coach for LW previously. Now, Sato is a guy who has never played a professional game, who is currently suspended. So what are your thoughts from watching Sato, or his reputation as we know his reputation is like a booster who's banned. But what are your thoughts about his reputation as a player among the other Korean pros? Are you concerned about him? What do you think his talent is?
I mean, to be honest, like I just don't trust those like basic like a general reputation. So I just gotta have to watch him play, but no idea.
No,
I just don't care.
Okay, you don't care. All right. Yeah.
Better answer.
Other people's opinions.
I mean, if he's good again, that's Philadelphia Fusion is an actual treasure box, and if not, that's gonna be a treasure box or trash box or something. So
there we go. Monty, he
treasure or
inadvertently,
trash box.
yeah.
Love it.
What's good is he inadvertently told you what he thought there, because he said, "Listen, if he's going to be good again, then I guess that treasure box. What do you mean good again? That old trash box. One of the two." But anyway, I have no opinion and don't care and wouldn't talk shit anyway. So
I've always felt like I haven't actually looked into this. This has just been like my gut feeling where, well, I mean, it's not going to be like anything really like strong or anything like that. But basically, I feel like Philly went out and picked up.
Come on.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I feel like Philly picked out two different kinds of each player that they have on their team. So they have like two of every role on their team, right?
Come on, then explain the logic. Then how does that work?
Just from like watching some of their players play, like especially Shadowburn and EQO, I think they play really opposite styles. I think that Carpe and Snillo don't necessarily play opposite styles of Tracer, but like I think Carpe is significantly more up in your face, whereas Snillo is more hiding, like flanky. So I felt like this is just something that I was thinking. Maybe they picked up a really sneaky Winston and then like a Winston that would jump in, every time, like Fraggy, who has gotten better in that regard. But like that was just my general thought. Maybe that's what they were trying to go for.
They could also save Fraggy when Sato becomes eligible to be a Rhine specialist because his Reinhardt is still super good.
Right.
As far as Sato goes, so he is scrimming he's actively scrimming because the thing is Philadelphia has two full rosters, and I do know that they scrim with their sort of B team. And like not only they scrim each other like internally, which I think is smart to save strategies, but their other team is out there actually scrimming against a bunch of other teams. Have either of you scrimmed against the Philly B team? Have you scrimmed against Sato at all?
I think we've scrimmed against Sato before, but I wasn't paying attention to his play.
I have not seen Sato playing at all.
Okay, fair enough.
Right, since we put a pin in it, and I would be remiss not to give you the opportunity here, right? Wizard, when you said that if you'd have had, say, a week, for example, like Apex style, to study the fusion, please bear in mind you did win the match. Like, okay, this isn't like a lost match that you're getting back. You actually now want to theorycraft how you would have won the match undefeated, right? Okay, explain to Wizard, what would you have done differently if you'd have had a week or something? Basically, if you'd have had a sense of what they might have done. What
I mean, it's just simply like just doing the same thing, just scouting enemy team and see how they're playing and what kind of comp they're playing, and like just see their tactics and thinking about like counter strategy and talk about it with the coach Pavane and just come up with the like smart strategy as always. And it's just we're just only one. I'm just only one person. Like I have very limited time, as you can see, and like I personally think like the one thing that I don't like about the am I allowed to say this? One thing that I don't like about the Overwatch League is that there is like too like short time to prepare for the playoffs. Like just like I mean it's stage finals. So
yes.
Yeah, so I would have been aware that their play style has been changed recently, and like that would have made a whole lot of difference for sure.
So fortunately, you only get money for that right now, and we haven't instituted the Monte Cristo policy of making them actually worth points. So it's not the biggest thing in the world, right? It doesn't affect your ability to get into the real playoffs where you have a chance to make way, way, way more money. So let's talk about it. So we started with we saw the first two maps. You guys lost both of those, and then we're gonna skip ahead. So you had a little chat with your players at halftime in the game, and you come out and you start playing Volskaya, and you hold them on Volskaya. You guys are looking a lot better. Libero's on the Widowmaker. You're hitting all your shots. It looks absolutely beautiful. That map was pretty straightforward. You should have known that Philly was going to try the same tactics, so nothing really there. Now, my biggest question for you is about Hollywood.
Okay.
Because I have honestly no idea what Philadelphia Fusion was doing on their Hollywood attack. So basically, you guys are running. Sabe, you'll be on the Roadhog, Jonas on the Orisa. You're running triple tank with Meko on the Diva, and Libero's playing the Junkrat. Mm-hmm. And obviously, this isn't too confusing of a composition. You guys are looking for the halt chain, hook combos. You're looking for picks with the Junkrat. And they come out and they're running Tracer Widow, and then they see your comp and they immediately go back and switch into triple tank Widow, which my mind was just like, at this point in time, because I'm sitting thinking to myself, if Carpe doesn't kill the Junkrat immediately, Libero is going to get a Riptire instantly. Instantly. And I was like, this is just a bad comp to run. We had seen them just beat you on Lijiang by using Pharah, which they don't normally use. So what do you think they were... Let's speculate on what they were thinking running this composition into what they saw, because I don't understand it.
I think it's like simply if they see Orisa, they just automatically switch to triple tank. But the thing is, I think some teams have been playing Orisa comp without Junkrat, and if you don't have Junkrat, it's obviously vulnerable against that triple tank, right? But because we had Junkrat, it was like super easy. I think it could be as simple as that.
Okay, but then they see you have Junkrat and they switch to McCree instead of Widow. Riddle me that, WizardHyeong.
I mean, not the best person to ask, but
we're speculating. I was just confused. I was like, I don't think that. Now, it did work. We'll talk about why it did work, but that was a mistake you made, not them actually making it work. What do you think they were thinking, Harsha?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
So let's talk about what happened, because I was actually rewatching this film today for my own amusement. I was like, maybe I missed something here. And so one of the tools that the three of us enjoy is that we get the map overview VODs, so we can literally watch the entire map from the mini map, which is a great tool to review positioning, tactics. So I was taking a look at this today, and I was like, what did I miss here? And I watch it, and they come out, and Carpe... Libero just goes on the high ground, dumpsters Carpe's Widowmaker with a mine, and then proceeds to get a Riptire instantly. Okay? So that didn't work. They switched to McCree. They come back. There's a Riptire. So what happens is that Fraggy dies. Okay? So they push forward again. They're trying to attack. Fraggy dies in the choke point. And then you guys all run out against four of their old... No, wait. Yeah, it was Fraggy who, I believe, died in the choke point. Hold on. Let me just... refresh my memory for a second. So they lose a member. No, it wasn't Fraggy who died. They lose a member in the choke point. So somebody dies, and all your guys run into the choke and immediately get earth shattered by Fraggy, and you lose a 5 versus 6. So
listening.
This game was really torn for me, because I really liked your composition, and I was like, I didn't think the strategy was going to work from Philly. And then you literally just sprint into an earth shatter. Oh, I remember what happened now. So Jonas had swapped from Orisa to the Winston.
Yeah.
And he leaps into the choke point, and then he puts his bubble down. They're like, hey, look, there's Winston with no jump. And Fraggy literally just walks through the bubble, and the rest of your NYXL comes to try and save him, and then everybody gets earth shattered and died.
Yeah.
Yeah, I exactly remember, because I simply cannot forget that horrible moment.
It was Philly's only win condition, and they got it.
I mean,
yes, Philly's only.
Not kidding. I literally lost my mind. I literally lost my mind. I was absolutely angry. And I think I can say this. The story behind it was we were super hyped. We're winning and we're getting the flow.
Well, you were trying to punish them more for a kill they had already gotten, but you were trying to punish them when they had 4 ults, and I believe you had 1.
So what happened was that Sebio B, because we're getting picks, right? Sebio B just simply made the call. let's go in, let's go in, go, 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 go. And then, even though when it was a situation where there should not have been going in, but you know, like they just followed the team captain's order, shot calling, and that tragedy happened. And I mean, if Sebio B didn't play like that amazing at the end, I would be still mad at Sebio B probably. So, but he played it extremely well, yeah. So it's fine, yeah.
And now we know the series of plays is why Hyung looks so sad on the stage.
I would say that was one of the biggest reason. Like seriously, like like it took me literally 5 minutes to like calm me down. So
I'm glad we could share this moment together.
Right, Wizard.
I was just fucking laughing. Like honestly, I was literally just there watching this bot, and I was like, "What the actual fuck?"
Exactly. What the actual fuck? Okay.
Wizard. With all that said, as someone who comes from the LW organization, you should love the format of the Overwatch League. If you're just a consistently pretty good team, you're right near the top all the time. Aside from that bullshit IEM Gongi, where I don't know what the fuck Lunatic High's lineup was, you've never won before, mate. Why are you going mad? Like, oh, wasn't good enough. Like, you have never experienced this before. Wasn't that crazy to win something?
I mean, so to talk about my coaching, I have to talk about my coaching first. Like what I do. Yeah. So
what do you do?
I study on a specific project, whether it's like Genji coaching, whether it's like a hero like Winston or something, whether it's okay, we're losing too many CP. How do we win 2 CP maps? Right.
Okay.
So or we have like this problem with the ultimate management specifically. I studied that for like for like 2 or 3 weeks and come up with the best solution that nobody at the moment could have thought of, and just hug myself. I'm so proud of myself, and yeah. So I just don't care about winning or losing. It's all about, if my study was actually effective in this game or not. That's just for me, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So is this similar to your position, Harsha, where it's the coaches decide, the high coach? So in your case, Harsha, it would be Brad. In Wizard's case, it would be Pavane, who are deciding your tasks. So they're looking at a broad set of problems, and then you are set specifically to do this. Is this same for you, Harsha?
I do a lot of the. I do a lot of the.
Wizard. Was that wrong?
I mean, so like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
like, I decide whatever the fuck I want to do. Like, I don't follow Vane's order. Yeah, and I also get involved in team like strategy and stuff as well. But just yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in like a similar vein. I like during the middle of stage 1, I kind of figured I would just choose my role, and I just did like a lot of enemy scouting and then like counter shredding, basically. So I guess somewhat similar, but I guess not as focused as Hyung.
But I'd say so. Pavane's job is basically seeing the bigger picture, and I'm seeing the like very detailed stuff. I guess that's like the simplest explanation that I'll come up with.
Okay.
Mm.
So anyway, you said all that. It sounded great, but surely it was pretty big to fucking win something. No?
You didn't see the pictures of him on stage,
Wasn't a big deal. Wasn't a big deal to win, Wizard.
He had like a 1,000-yard stare. Just everybody was celebrating, and Hyung's just sitting in the corner, looking like through the crowd.
I mean, that's because obviously he's a realistic person. So in the back of his mind, he's like, okay, so not only would we have probably lost to London, but now our fucking Fusion team's almost beaten me as well. And fuck, I'm glad the Seoul Dynasty didn't make it. Okay.
I mean, I just like can't lie. I'm just my facial expression like shows like what I'm thinking, or just.
All right, we're gonna need to make an emoticon out of this facial expression. Go back and get it.
I'll find it.
Just don't make it in any way amphibian based.
No, that's
humans
a clear.
only.
It's a clear no-no apparently.
Well, I say humans only. Obviously, has to be exactly of his race. Can't be of another person related to. Fuck, it's getting complicated, isn't it? Making memes has never been more difficult. Never been more difficult. Right? Okay. What about this then? So, Harsha, give me your perspective on this, right? New York Excelsior, even going back to the LW days, like I said, people did carry that concept over that they were like cursed or they always choke or whatever it is, right? What do you think about them winning the stage? Are they the best team? Does it make sense that they won?
I thought they were.
I mean, some people would have said they should have won stage 1, right?
Yeah, I thought they were the best team throughout both stages. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Hyung can agree or disagree with this, but like I thought they kind of threw away the stage 1 finals. To be fair, like they defaulted to like. First of all, you played like Janus for the last 3 maps. I don't really know what went into like Mono versus Janus for those, but then also like you played a ton of Dive, and I felt like Dive wasn't the strongest comp from New York during stage 1. And to be fair, like Dive from New York on stage 2 has been really like insane, but during stage 1 it was like a lot of taking the same angle and like a lot of just like mistakes that I guess aren't characteristic of New York nowadays.
I mean, I agree, but I totally agree, but I still can't like get rid of this feeling where I want to middle finger you. But
I have that feeling too. It's okay.
But yeah, so we just simply didn't understand like how the Genji Tracer versus Widow Tracer are like playing, and just like we just don't know how to play the game at the moment, I think. And that was like the simplest thing. I think it's not necessarily about like Mano and Janus. It's more about that we had to play against like Widow Tracer as Genji Tracer on the last 3 maps, and that was like the major thing. Yeah.
So you guys should know each other really well, because it's my understanding that because you guys didn't play each other in stage 1, that you guys were like, very thorough. Yeah. You guys practiced together quite a bit because you never had to face each other. So I think it's interesting that your observations of each other's styles should be pretty in depth, right? Because you have so much experience practicing against one.
And obviously playing against a Shock wouldn't help you beat Fusion or Spitfire.
Yes, but true mostly for stylistic reasons, I feel.
Sure. Yes.
Mostly for stylistic reasons.
Shock, they were buddy at the like stage 1, and was very helpful, screaming thing. And then we were like we're able to ask like, can we do the specific map again, or can we do the specific like second point defense again? And like, cause like we're pretty much like a sister team, so I think it was beneficial for both teams. And then like to talk about San Francisco Shock a little bit, they have been playing amazing. A little bit amazing, not too amazing, but recently. So I think we never lost a scream against them in stage 1, but I think we did lost a scream block against San Francisco Shock recently, if I remember correct. And I do remember correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
before your fuel match. Yeah.
Monty, this is how ridiculous Koreans are. That to him, they have played amazingly because they once won a scrim block ever.
I know. It's fantastic to hear these things.
Isn't that outrageous?
So here's the question though. So talking to Sinatra and Super, you've started to integrate these guys into your scrims in anticipation of them coming of age. So Wizard, was Super and was Sinatra playing in your scrim, in that scrim that you lost?
Sinatra was playing, and I didn't see Super, if I remember correct.
Yeah, it was literally last week, and I think it was literally right before you guys played Fuel, and we were just playing the same maps. So yeah, we didn't play Super at all.
Okay. To talk about Super, I kind of had some sort of respect for him when he was playing LG Evil. He was like one of those main tanks who actually understand how to control the space and everything. Yeah, so I am very much excited to see him like perform, and if he's performing better than our player, I'll just copy him and make our players even better. So
wait a second, you were watching LG Evil while you were in X?
Oh, so to talk about my history, so I started working my coaching career started with the Splice like an A
Right,
team.
okay, I
Fucking
forgot.
hell, like, this is the
worked
name of a
for-
biography already, from Splice to the New York Excelsior, the Wizard-Hyong story.
So yeah,
Fucking hell.
Splice, and then
Gale Force,
TSM, TSM a little bit, and then Gale Force,
Yeah.
and then LW and New York Excelsior.
Yeah, so he worked
Take
with
it
a lot
back
of the.
from Gale Force to the New York Excelsior. Fucking hell.
To be fair, a lot of the Gale Force players are now on
Outlaws or
Outlaws.
something,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you asked like why? What was the reason that we were not able to like get the championship when we were on LW? Right, we just had a like poor environment. Like the environment at the moment was like not good. Like players just couldn't focus on their game, and I myself had kind of like hard time focusing on coaching. It was like absolutely bad. And now, thankfully, we have this New York Excelsior. I think it's our company's actually amazing. Like, not kidding. I told you, I'm like our company, our management is amazing. Like, actually amazing. So, everyone is like super happy. And yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest factor. No.
I'll tell you what's not amazing. Going through New York Excelsior's PR firm and it taking me 5 days to confirm you for this show. So it's not so good for me, but that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, and yeah, they're nice for the players and the coaching staff. So
Not nice for Monty.
Okay. Right, so what about this then? So obviously, as well as adding Super and Sinatra, there's going to be Architect in the next stage. So Harsha, give us some insight. Obviously, potentially, if you put all three players in, this is a totally radically different team. What do you think the logic will be? Will the same core of the team be played and they'll actually test players out? Is it taken for granted that all these players will come in initially and kind of get like a starting spot and then you'll see what happens beyond that? What's the logic, do you think?
So right now the goal is kind of to have like a core of players. So I would say probably 3 or 4 players that won't be rotating at all. And then we'll have, I think the role that will be where we'll be like experimenting most will be DPS, where we have Architect, we have Sinatra, we have Dante, and then we have Baby who's also been like, I mean, he's probably the most experienced on hit scan out of everybody here. So like we're gonna have to figure out what DPS rotation we want to use, like how we want to use them, what maps they're going to be on. I guess, I probably can't talk about this, but like the maps for stage 3 have been decided already, and so they do lean a certain way.
Yeah, they do. And also the patch leans a certain way with young Dante being a fantastic Sombra.
Sombra, yeah.
So that should be quite helpful for you.
Yeah.
So I have to ask a question about the San Francisco Shock. We'll get to that in a second. So you guys did this big video for Sinatra's birthday. Dak is there cooking all the steaks.
We didn't do that, actually. That was MLG.
Oh, okay, that was MLG. But
yeah.
Okay, so MLG was the one who threw Sinatra's birthday party.
Or are you going to ask if Super's going to get that kind of treatment or something? Okay.
No, so you already forgot what I was going to ask, which is what happened on Dante's birthday? Did like Dak throw a hot pocket at him or something? See, you even forgot Dante.
No. I said happy birthday to him.
All right.
I said happy birthday to him at midnight on the 24th. He went out. He had a nice day with his parents in Beverly Hills. Didn't get a video. I told him I'm going to bring him a cake to practice this week. So,
all right, very good.
He'll get that much.
All right, Wizard. What were you going to say about Sombra?
Oh, so I was just like, I wanted to ask like your opinion, like Harsha's opinion, or like Monte or Thorin's opinion on like just not using certain players at all. Because I think personally, it's not healthy for the players, and like for the team environment, I just don't think it's like healthy. So unless there's a significant problem, a significant issue,
are we about to learn something about Pine?
Pine, yeah. I guess it's already public.
Pine already claimed he's like depressed or something. I was like,
I mean, yeah. So Pine has significant issue at the moment. Like he has like too much stress. It's like insane level, and then yeah.
I'm
so
sorry to hear that. We all like watching Pine play, so I hope he comes back soon.
Yeah, watching his game, watching him play is like thrilling pretty much all the time.
He does live on the razor's edge.
Yes.
but anyways, Yeah, but anyways, I just think like not benching the player for the entire stage or something is just not a healthy environment for the team. Or I think a lot of them just simply lose their motivation.
So
and their skills gets dull. Like
something like Monty's actually like actively spoken about and like I just forgot the fucking word I was going to say, but basically advocated. That's the word I was going to look for. Is like having 12 people so you can do internal scrims, so you can basically always be using your players so that they're not like just sitting there uselessly.
Atrophying.
Yeah. Like, I think I agree. Like, also not using players kind of just lowers their stock for season 2, because first of all, they won't be actively scrimming, and then contender teams are actively scrimming all the time. So they'll be more used to a competitive environment than those bench players.
Here's
the
problem with this, okay, the Harsha, is that it sounds great in principle, but in my opinion, that will only exist if you are in the Apex and you have real sister teams. Because the one team that could do it was the London Spitfire, and they have already sold the players they needed to do that. And one of the reasons, by the way, why they've sold the players is because players who are world-class don't want to sit there and not play in the game and go,
of course.
At least I'm helping this guy win and accomplish all his dreams, but I am sat here on the bench while I could start for 8 teams in the league, you know. So unfortunately, I agree, if you could, it'd be a dream, and maybe some team can manage it, but it looks to me like almost no one's actually going to be able to do that.
Well, I think Philadelphia is managing to do that right now. And I do think that when we look at London, we still have 5 more days before they can sign another player. We know they brought another tank in with TZ. I think we're going to see more roster movement in general over the next few days. And so I anticipate London will probably get another DPS player so they can internally scrim again. I agree with the problem. So the fundamental problem that Harsha brings up, and something that I think that Overwatch League should look at in the future, is the concept of a 2-way contract where you can go down and compete in contenders. Because if you have players on the bench, of course they're going to be unhappy. Like, literally, they can't even practice properly in a team environment. If you were able to drop them into contenders this is a little tough because you have to put in safeguards, because you don't want teams dropping players down to contenders to avoid relegation.
And also to win or contenders matches and then bring them back to Overwatch League and fuck around, you know.
Yeah, winning contenders matches is sort of whatever, but remember that there is a relegation system in contenders with the open division. So you don't want teams dropping good players into contenders at the last second to save them from relegation. So you have to put like a time limit on it, like a cool off period. But I do think it's really garbage for teams that don't have 12 players and have like permanent bench players, like, I don't know, Numlocked on the Valiant, I think the most frustrating thing for the pros is that there's no path to getting that starting spot again. Like, they literally just constantly get worse because the players on contenders have a chance to practice in a team environment, and these guys just play solo queue and that's it. Like, I think it's a really poor system, and I think that's on the teams too. What I have advocated for, as Harsha is saying, is that I think it should have been mandatory players. That way you can avoid this scenario altogether. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and I do think that now the teams are realizing that perhaps this is something that they should have instituted. And I'm sure that Harsha is dealing with this right now because, for example, with Super coming in, Nomi's actually been improving. But how are we going to know that Nomi can get even better when you can't even put him on the contenders team or whatever, right? You can't just like drop him down to energy and say, we're upgrading our contenders roster and giving this guy more experience. So you have to move up to 12 players. So I understand the players' complaints. I think they're completely legitimate. These are guys that want to get better. And in fact, being on the bench sort of gets them into a cycle where they can never actually improve to be Overwatch League caliber again, and dumps them down the drain. So I do agree. I think like Harsha and Wizard are spot on this.
And for the last, I just want to say this. Flower was extremely unhappy with all that situation. Like, he had a super hard time with that situation. And I mean, finally he signed to our contenders team. But yeah, just
okay.
I mean, looking at him, like next to him, just was quite painful.
Yes, but we have to discuss why this happened. You guys signed him as like a member of staff. Okay? So that basically because here's another problem with contenders that I don't like, is that basically any contenders player on any team can be picked up by any Overwatch League team. Now, as far as I understand it, there is a right of first refusal. So if the team if somebody else offers Flower X contract, Excelsior can say, because he signed to XL2, we will match that contract and you have to go with us. But I do think there is a problem when you can't even develop talent internally and have it somewhat protected. And that's why the whole Flower situation even existed in the first place. Because
an obvious solution, by the way, is maybe give someone like a franchise tag that you can put on one player you want to test out in contenders, and that player just can't be straight signed out from under your feet, you know?
Yeah, it's like a franchise tag in football. You tag a player as the one guy who can't be taken away from you. But what the franchise tag in football does is give that player a ludicrous minimum salary, right?
Yes.
So you can agree that this dude's going to get paid bank on your contenders team, but he is protected.
Tangentially, I think that there's 7 academy teams for, if I'm not mistaken, in North America.
In North America, yeah.
There are only 8 teams. Only 8 teams will remain in contenders. So it's very likely that some academy teams don't actually make it.
Because as soon as I heard that, by the way, that they were actually... Because obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, by the way, Flower also can't play in Stage 3. He basically comes of age, 2 days, I think, before week 1 of Stage 4. So, first of all, already New York is the best team. So it's not even actually, despite what everyone said, it's not taken for granted you would instantly put him in the lineup anyway. It depends on what happens around that period of time. I mean, if you win the next stage, who says you would? But when I heard this story, I already knew the detail that, if you put them into contenders, then in theory it's fair game. Anyone can make them an offer. Now, obviously, in this one scenario, I think this is the only case I can think of, every fan assumes, but this is the one player that's safe. If you put him in, obviously he wants to play with his LW teammates of the past. He wants to be in the best team in the league. There's all these incentives. But as soon as I heard that, Harsha, I instantly started pulling for some sort of mad scenario. I hope every other owner in the league, Astro, everyone, they're all just literally with fucking chalkboards. How do we get him? Tell me how. And they just make it. It's like that scene in the Bible, where the devil takes Jesus up to a high mountain and he offers him the kingdoms of the earth, and he says all this stuff. He's just trying to figure out anything he can get to make this guy come over to his side. But here's the key part, Harsha, is that the crucial thing that the Overwatch League did allow is the team gets the first right of refusal. So basically, no matter what they offer Flower, they can still get him from the New York Excelsior inside that fucking bunker 6 miles below the earth in New York State somewhere, where they strap him to a chair, they show him projector film of Korea, of all his old teammates, of fucking Maycoach crying or something, I don't know. They show him everything, right? And then they can go, now what do you want to do? You want to sign this contract?
Wait,
what do you do?
To be clear, for right of first refusal, do you have to match the salary that is proposed by...
I actually don't know.
Because if you do, teams could actually legitimately fuck with Flower.
Fucked with the New York Excelsior. You just try to bankrupt the New York Excelsior. It's like going to an auction trying to fuck with the other guy, isn't it? Bid. Just bidding him up, aren't you? It's you can keep him. It's going to cost you a lot of fucking money, though. Let's play a game.
That can obviously backfire, though, and it's not like that doesn't happen in professional sports as well, right? There is a mind game, especially in sports, with salary caps behind, messing with trying to drive up players' contracts, because if they have to spend more money on that player, they're going to have less money to spend on other players to make them more. So, just
talking about salary, I have a question for one of the San Francisco Shock member, because we hear rumors.
Okay.
Because we have all the rumors, right? And then we get this impression why is San Francisco Shock paying almost maybe absolutely too much? Just kind of curious.
Well, so I think the only rumor is Sinatra, right?
Sinatra.
No, don't name names. Don't name names.
I'm just gonna say that as far as I can tell, the only actual salary that's been publicized in any way, shape, or form has been Sinatra's. I think that's kind of. I think that all salaries should be publicized, to be fair, but I think it's kind of shitty.
Only if there's a players' union. If there's a players' union.
But I think just from talking to Sinatra, I think it's kind of a shitty position to be in, just because everybody assumes he's this. He's been ludicrously paid. Everybody assumes that he's that if he doesn't perform to some certain expectation, he's a waste of money, right? But like nobody knows really the scene in terms of nobody knows how much money every other team is making. Nobody knows how much like worse players are making. Nobody knows how much better players are making.
By the way, just as a quick sidebar on that, I will say that in itself is part of the danger of all the salaries not being public, is that if any salary is public, they will now judge that player in a way they won't someone else. So for example, in Counter-Strike, this is a big problem we have right now, because certain teams either themselves have publicized what they made, or, you know, people through interviews have said, like, I know that this team, for example, makes X amount. And the biggest problem with that, okay, I'll give you a very quick example, is that, okay, so in Counter-Strike, we have two big French teams, and they're both big orgs. It's G2 and it's Envious. So these are massive orgs in esports. Now, what's funny is everyone knows that G2, who actually were one of the top 4 teams in the world, makes one of the highest salaries. But here's what's funny. Because they know that, when G2 underwhelms, so they're one of the top 4 teams, but oftentimes they would finish top 8 in a tournament. Right. Everyone bags on them from the basis of the salary, and they go, they get paid so much, and they're not even, like, you know, they're not the best, they're not practicing as much, this is bullshit. Now, here's what people don't know, Harsha. The Envious team also has a very good salary, but it's significantly worse. But because no one knows the salary, people go, leave Envious alone, they're all right, man. And it's like, they actually make loads of money too, so it's actually a really fucked up scenario.
Yeah, but you do have to have some sort of control on this, which is part of what comes with a players' union. I think that if the players unionize, then they will choose, like there will be publicized salaries, because at that point in time, then it'll be better for them to negotiate based on their value as a collective unit with certain minimums. So I hope that happens. I mean, we've had reports of Morte, the former professional player turned coach, who has been working with an attorney who I think worked with the NFL Players Association. I think that he is a very smart person, and I think that he found another good person with a lot of experience, it seems like. Again, I just read an article. I don't know her particular background beyond what the article stated, but on first blush, on first glance, it would appear that, you know, this is a good way to start things forward, and it would be good for it would just be good for the league. Like, you know, with the players' code of conduct coming out and the suspensions that we've had and everything like that, I think that the players also need to be in a position where they can negotiate as a unit to make sure that everything is good on their end, and it'll just balance things out, and I think it'll just make the entire ecosystem of Overwatch esports better, in terms of the players' relationship with the league and the players' relationship with the teams and everything like that. I think it really would do a lot of good all the way around.
Harsha, to loop back in though, as Wizard said, why are you all paying those players so much?
Sinatra's a good player, man.
Is he that good though?
I mean, I don't want to talk about money and
no one asked you about money. No one asked you about money, mate. I asked why you're doing something, not what.
No, I think he will, like, to be fair to him, this is like his first game on stage in 6 months or so. His first 2 matches, and I think. Okay,
Harsha, here's the way that I would reformulate the question to get the real answer. Okay, essentially, from the outside, it looks like San Francisco Shock has gambled their entire future in the Overwatch League for at least the first season on Sinatra, right? That's basically the premise.
Sinatra, and I mean just young talent in general, but yes, a lot of it would be Sinatra.
Okay, so why is that? Like, what's the logic behind this, or was this like a plan from day one?
Presumably. I mean, I wasn't with the org from day one. I wasn't with them. The only players I had any input on, because I came after the initial signing, or the initial signings, were Nevix and Architect. I actually didn't even know Moth very well until he joined the team. But I mean, I do legitimately think Sinatra is that good, and I think that given time, he will step up to the plate. Maybe step up to the plate wasn't the right phrase. Hit a home run, maybe.
I think Sinatra has shown to be a good player in the past. He's also there's a lot of potential skill ceiling with him, but we'll have to wait and see. His debut it's a hard too, because Dante stepped up so much, honestly, that there's been such immense improvement from Dante that I'm curious how you guys are gonna work it out, and whether you'll have Sinatra be more of a specialist.
Okay, wait a second. Right, Monty, here's the problem with this whole discussion.
What is the problem?
The premise that Wizard raised is actually a totally rational one that everyone here just sidestepped, which goes like this. right? The Overwatch League contains 4 stages per season. Why would I gamble all of the Overwatch League season basically on the idea that either my team is going to be godlike in the last 2 stages, or that I know this player is going to be so good that it's all worth it? Basically, if I had the money that we're imagining in this scenario maybe isn't paid to other players, why don't I just sign the best team I can for stage 1 and then potentially add other players later? Like, what's, it doesn't, as a long-term strategy, it's actually not that logical, unless you literally know this is going to be like the LeBron of Overwatch, which is far from certain. It is quite a unique approach to take.
This is also why I say that it's hard to judge when you literally don't know we don't know any of the other players' salaries, right?
Yes.
Whereas on the inside we might, and I think that it's like a fair. It's hard to.
Is it overblown then? Is it
Yeah, it's
overblown, the idea that he's
yeah.
like, the one person that everyone's... Put it this way, he's not like the Kevin Garnett of the Overwatch, where
Yeah,
they paid him the highest contract ever as the youngest player and you gamble the whole franchise on him, right?
It is definitely very overblown, but also he's clearly like the franchise player, right? And so while it is like kind of hard to see why they'd stack all of their put all the eggs in the stage
the
3
whole org at least around it, not necessarily all the eggs, obviously, but you have definitely the whole thing's built up so that he can come in the team at some point in time.
Right, but I think like first of all, season 2 is clearly like the goal when they want us to be like a top team, and like playoffs is obviously the goal for us right now, but like we presumably would have to go like 7-3 for both stage 3 and stage 4 to make it into playoffs, I think. So, I mean, yeah, I see your point, but I also think that the goal is like long-term or focused more around season 2 rather than just the first season, because we didn't even have half our tools. Yeah, we did, but we didn't have all of our tools, rather, stage 1, stage 2.
Which also tells us something interesting about the Shock, which is that they must have these players signed at least through the end of season 2, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing this. So
I think it's
hopefully,
sure.
Hopefully, Monty,
because we don't even know. It's not like contract durations are public either. So I think that I agree. I mean, I was obvious from the way that they were handling the player signings in the first place that this was going to be a development team for stage 1, and that a playoff spot would be incredible, given that a lot of these players wouldn't even be available into stage 3. So
you have to understand, Monty, my dream is that when you said that, like everyone's watching this in the Shock house, and then what happens is they all look at some sort of GM guy and they go, of course we signed him through season 2, right? And then I mean, if I had to represent him now, I'd probably represent him as a frog with one piece of sweat rolling down the side of his head, That's how he might feel at that moment. Yep. Can I just talk to a couple of you privately?
Classic.
Right, let's talk about some of the other teams then, right? Wizard, while we have you here, you obviously didn't play the London Spitfire, except at the beginning of the season where they beat you like a drum again and basically like put you on the back foot the whole way. Had you literally were renting space inside your head the whole time. Like, you were just thinking about them all season long, probably wasting your time thinking about them in the final. Like you said, they're like, this would have worked against the London Spitfire. Like, no one gives a fuck. Like, so what about the London Spitfire? Tell me about this team, your nemesis.
Like their strategy, or like what about him?
Tell me about them. Just, are they the best team? You think they're an amazing team? What do you think about them?
I think they are one of the scariest team like to play against at the moment, for sure.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know, like,
what's scary about them?
What's scary about them? I mean, we just have like bad memory against them, for sure. That's one thing.
Okay.
They're one of the teams that optimized, I think, the Tracer and Winston synergy. So from my point of view, I think that people talk about like tank synergy a lot, but I think that like one of the more important synergies is like having your Tracer and Winston on the same page always. And Profit and Gesture really like epitomize that. Like they're two of the most I mean, if you just watch them, they play very similarly. Like they're always on the same wavelength, and so I think that's one of their strengths. They also seem to have this like weird weakness though, where they're always bad at some certain map.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with the about the Tracer Winston thing. And I was like watching their like Winston and Tracer playing together was kind of like it blowed my mind, and so I gather the database about that specific. I basically studied that field. Okay,
He downloaded the London Spitfire into his mind and played out every battle 1,000 times. And you know what?
have like
the motherfuckers didn't even turn up for the final.
I have 5 of my slaves who's working for me, basically assistant analyst who's just manually building the database for me.
Database slaves.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Just they made the database for Winston and Tracer, and it was just clearly showing that they were actually good, like duo. And I 100% agree with Harsha with that. So that's first thing, and they have Scary Widowmaker for sure. I mean, arguably Pine's better. But
yeah, but he doesn't play the games, so that's better. I'm better. Okay, great. Well, I'm never in the Overwatch. There we go. Why are you telling us that when we can never watch him play?
Yeah.
I think that's like the main thing, and their DPS duo, like Prophet and Birdring, they make this kind of like huge play, and when they like start like pop off, it's kind of hard to like counter that as a team. Yeah.
So we talk about Prophet and Birdring as a duo, but we don't get to see that all the time, do we? They run very different rosters depending on the match, and they play Hureg, and they play Hagapun, and they play Closer, and sometimes we see Woohyal, and sometimes we see Fury. So what is it about London from the outside? Because we know when they run the good roster, which is Prophet, Birdring, and Gesture, which is undoubtedly the best dive combination in Overwatch League. And they play Bidoshin, and they play Nuss, and I would argue it matters less whether they play Woohyal or Fury.
Yeah.
When they run this roster, they are super good, and we see how high their ceiling is. But unlike the New York Excelsior, who ran basically one roster throughout this entire stage, or with slight alterations, we see the great rotation of players on the London Spitfire. They drop maps where they shouldn't. They arguably drop matches that they shouldn't as a result, if we're to go back and look at the Gladiators game that they played this stage. Why do you think they do this?
I have we can only assume, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I have my own theory. About it. So first of all, I think it's about like the thing we're talking about, like giving all the players chance to play on a match, I think. And there were like 2 separate teams, C9 and
GC Busan.
GC Busan and Kongbu Pantera, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think somehow like GC Busaners got more power, and I am kind of assuming that affected the B shop situation. I'm not too sure. Just it's my own theory, right? Just I have no idea, like no fucking clue.
They forced him out. I like it. Keep going.
And then GC Busaners got more
Hostile
power, and
takeover.
it just affecting the roster, I guess. Just that's my assumption. Like
It's all
just,
political. All political.
maybe
Like
I
Game
don't
of
know.
Thrones in that motherfucker.
I guess maybe.
I mean,
You're living up to the Britishness of it, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's all politics, baby.
their new
All deals behind the scene, a lot of backbenchers, you know.
their new head coach does happen to be a GC Busan coach, as far as I know. I don't know if he's actually their head coach, but he's at least their acting head coach right now. But one of the so this is going to be like, I don't know why they would play it, to be honest, but I think probably it has to do with their like wanting to give everybody some stage time. But one of the things that I found like interesting, like I've actually talked to Sideshow about this topic like a lot, just because he's someone that really liked GC Busan and like enjoyed watching them play, and now doesn't enjoy watching them play as much. But essentially, like the way GC Busan worked, a lot of the time they spent they just like hard peeled for Hureg and Hagapun, and Gesture and Prophet would do their own thing. And the big thing about like hard peeling is that now you don't have the same diva, and so old diva was actually better at peeling in terms of keeping damage away from your team, and then you could put the soldier biotic field, I think, onto the ground and heal through it. New diva has to actually like her way of peeling is more like booping people away, and then her matrix doesn't last that long, and then she has to just kind of out damage the Winston and kill him before he can do stuff. So I think that first of all, Hagapun has like really weird positioning where he always plays like these like just like strange spots in my opinion in terms of where you would put a Zen normally. But then also when they like peel for him, it's not the same. It doesn't work as well. That's just my like theory. I don't know if that's actually what's been going on with GC Busan, but from my like from my limited observations, that is, I think that's been one of their problems.
No one else has any thoughts on that? I'm just going to leave that out, are we?
No, I mean,
I guess. There we go.
I do agree. I do agree with that. That I think that they've adapted less well, especially Woo Hyul in particular from GC Busan, from old diva to new diva. I think that's been a pretty common observation of his play. But I actually like it. Going back, I just don't think that's the big issue. I think the big issue is that it's this constantly rotating cast of characters, and everybody knows what their scariest roster is. That's not even a question, right? We know that at least 5 of the 6 players should be starting. And I don't see any situation where Birdring should be subbed out, at the very least, okay? Actually, Birdring and Bedosian, I think that those guys definitely should be in at all possible times alongside Prophet and Gesture. So it is a bit of a mystery. Now, if that's whatever is causing that is solved, then I think London is going to be a significantly stronger team.
I mean, it might literally just be that they want to give other people playtime, though. But I think I absolutely agree. I think Bedosian should never been second best flex support in the league for my money, and then Birdring also should. I mean, I know why Hyeong's laughing, but yeah, Birdring obviously shouldn't be subbed out either.
So, okay, what going forwards, though, this is a problem, right? Because this is the other reason why I actually think Wizards' point about at least playing players and giving them playing time is tough. Is like this makes sense if you talk only about right now and you talk right about this stage and these matches. But what if you want to use one of these players in the future? What if one of your players gets worse? You can't just have the player sit there and do nothing, even though I agree, might not be the best player to have in. So you're in a tough scenario there. Not really any solution to it, except to just literally keep players on the bench who could play elsewhere.
Just gotta coach them better.
Oh, that's the solution then, right? My bad.
I mean,
tell you what, just coach them better. Yeah, okay.
Not kidding. I recently came up with the way to.
You've cracked it, haven't you? Come on. How did you do it?
I obviously cannot tell how, because I think it's something.
You had your analysts download you and check all of what you do, and then they found out the perfect scenario of how you can do it. And you're just running simulations all day, aren't you? You've got this. We might be in your simulation right now. Is this even a real episode?
Let's
you preparing for the episode you were going to.
Let's just put it this way: there are so many ways to practice, other than playing actual Scream. I think. Yes. Yeah, and I've just realized it recently, and it's mind blowing what those things can do. So just short notes.
Monty, you have to realize, like, Wizard's life is like an episode of fucking Black Mirror or something. He's running simulations all the time, and at the end, before he comes into the playoffs, that's why he's so upset. 'Cause he didn't have time to finish running the program before he played Fusion. But if he had, he would have just come in. He'd have won the match, literally just straight 3-1, 3-0, whatever, and he'd have just come on the stage and said, "Download complete." That would have been. That was his entire plan, and he did. But download only got like 78%, so.
It's okay. Luckily for Wizard, there's going to be an opportunity called the Overwatch League Playoffs where he will have much time to prep in between every match, and we can prove that his program is running correctly.
Hopefully.
Okay, here's the question then. Before we leave the Spitfire topic, like aside from the roster issues, do you think they actually take this loss, especially because obviously they didn't even get to the final, they lost to Fusion? Do you think this changes anything about the Spitfire? Do you think they just keep the same team? They go into the next stage? They just do the same things again? They try and win again? Do you think this affects so much that they lost?
The problem is, as far as I know, the only change they've made is bringing in Tizzy. I don't think there's any reason to put him in over Gesture, just because I think Gesture has been consistently like the best player, the best main tank player in Overwatch League. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't think there's a reason to sub him out. I guess maybe it opens like I don't know. Maybe they have to question their preparation going into Philly, but I think that presumably they're just going to keep the same lineup.
Okay.
Yeah, I basically agree with Harsha, but just adding a little bit. I agree Gesture is the best main thing at the moment, but just letting you know, I'm recently coaching our main things, and that will, Gesture being the best main tank player will change soon.
Definitely won't. Like, you can't just have all the best players at every position. So, like, be reasonable.
So, what are your thoughts on TZ, by the way? Because you obviously were prepping against Runaway in Korea. You said you wouldn't talk about Sato, but you have experience with TZ, I assume, right?
I mean, like, to be completely honest, I don't even remember. Like,
Not even
fair enough.
Shots
yeah,
fired.
yeah. I mean, okay, so yeah, just I don't even remember. Like, yeah, just yeah. Maybe I wasn't paying attention simply, or maybe he wasn't that impressive, or I don't know. Just, I'm not gonna lie.
I do not recall, as they often say in American, like, political scandals when they're in court. I do not recall, sir. Were you in that building? I do not recall. I'm sorry. I cannot implicate myself. Right, okay, let's talk about the other team that was from Korea that yet again did not make the playoffs. Right, I was told, Wizard, I was told on multiple episodes of this show that Seoul Dynasty was going to win the whole stage. This was their meta. Everything fit them, All of a sudden they have DPS players, all sorts of crazy statements. And in the end, they didn't even make the playoffs. What the fuck is going on with the Seoul Dynasty?
I've literally no idea why they played Wakid and Kuki against Houston. Like, took them less than seriously, and then so I guess background story is that they actually now have a B roster that they've been actively scrimming with, and so Wakid and Kuki have been playing almost all of their time, as far as I know. Almost all of their time, as far as I know, with the backup roster, right? And so then they suddenly throw them in against Houston and lose the first 3 maps, and they put
a team that was in a lot of trouble, wasn't very good, expected to be a free win basically.
And then they put Fleta in for the last map and expect him to I guess be their savior.
Fleta just win the whole match, mate.
Yeah, but except they put him in on Linkzer's best. So first of all, I think Linkzer's been one of the best, maybe even the best Widowmaker we've seen in stage 2 of OWL. And they expected Fleta to fix that, but they played him against Linkzer on Watchpoint Gibraltar, I think it was, a very good Widow map. And so they just, I don't know. I have no idea why they would do any of that. They should have at least made playoffs.
So here's my obviously we can discuss this in the same way we talk about London. But they've actually been rotating their roster less frequently. In fact, we didn't really see much of Kuki all of stage 2, as opposed to we get to see the London players pretty much, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I feel like the Seoul coaches, because remember, they have 4 different coaches, okay?
I think it's 5, if I remember correct.
Really?
Yes, Coach Che and Director Beck and Bubbly and Nugget.
And always Uv, Hokuri.
Yeah.
Hokuri.
Always Hokuri. Yeah, it's 5 total.
It's just a collective.
Okay, so they have a lot of coaches, a lot.
A think tank.
And a lot of accomplished coaches. So sometimes I think these guys get together and they come up with some insanely convoluted strategy where they overthink the situation. And the way how I like to think about this is you might have a brilliant strategy if you are the Cleveland Cavaliers. And maybe you don't think that LeBron James is going to be the best at executing this strategy. But isn't the fundamental problem that if you have LeBron James, shouldn't you just make a strategy around LeBron James? Even if it isn't, in your mind, as perfect a counter to your opponent as it could be, shouldn't you just build strats around Fleta? That's my take on this situation, is that they're way overthinking things and they're refusing to use their strengths.
Well, the funny thing is, Monty, this actually obviously happened in League of Legends. Believe it or not, okay, for everyone probably knows the basics of this, that the best team ever in League of Legends is a team called SK Telecom, and they have the best player ever in League of Legends, which is a player called Faker, who really is like whatever player you want to compare him to, the Michael Jordan, Messi, Pele, whoever you want to, Gretzky, whoever you want to compare him to, he is like clearly the best player ever. And believe it or not, there was actually a period of time where this team used to not play the best player ever because they thought, in the same sense, that in terms of the overall global meta, that they could actually achieve a better end and the perfect approach by not playing the best player in the world. And they even did things like this, like have him not play the first few games, lose, and then immediately go and like smash that big red box, like get him out, get Faker in now, and then tell Faker, just win the whole game for us, please, even though you play half of a series, you know.
Except in that sense, it always worked for SKT.
It did most of the time, but they actually lost a big international tournament. Yes.
Yeah, they lost MSI.
Oh, MSI. Okay, fair enough, yeah.
They lost one, unfortunately. They had to learn the hard way.
They did win a Korean season without even playing him in the finals.
Without playing him in the finals, yeah.
That was kind of impressive.
But okay, what do you think about this then, Wizard? This notion that maybe you could have the perfect strategy. You could come up with the best thing in theory, but if it doesn't involve Fleta, it's probably a flaw to it, right?
I mean, to be clear, we have the best player, literally the best player in the entire Overwatch League, regardless of position, which is Jonek. Like, if there's anybody who can deny it, come at me. I am ready to fight that. But I mean, we obviously would like to take advantage of that, right? But we also understand there's going to be time where Jonek is not performing as well as we are expecting. I mean,
a lot of faith in him, of course. Okay, right? Yeah.
So, like, Pavane and me, like, our coaching steps are always preparing. I mean, always like taking advantage of it at some degree, but we don't make strategy around it because I think when we start. So, for example, let's talk about this. So we made this strategy. Against London Spitfire on stage one final, I think. So we're having Pine on Widow on Volskaya. No. It was the
first week of stage 2.
Pine didn't play
first week of stage 2. Yeah.
Okay.
So Pine was playing Widowmaker, and we were just expecting him to pop off, and it's like a lottery. And like Pine is obviously an amazing player, right? I mean, he has a little bit of ups and downs, but for sure, like he's at the level of Birdring in terms of Widow, if not better, I think. But so we're just expecting him to do his thing, and when he didn't, we'd lose, and we do not want to take that risk. So we are always like happy to take advantage of the best player, but we are also preparing for the backup plans, or just simply don't make the strategy itself too much focus on that player. We just don't like it as a team.
Just remember that the moment you bench Jonak, Thorin is going to make a video called WizardHyeong is ruining esports history,
which he did about Faker. But yeah, you say that, but I still see Archon Mercy glued to Jonak with the damage boosting beam. So.
I mean, that's stage 1, and we're utilizing the player at some level, but just not entirely.
And is everyone just cool with him saying that Pine is a better Widowmaker than?
And for your information,
everyone's just going to chill. That's just going to get past by. That's fine. That's no problem there.
For
They've got all the best players in his team. Yeah, sound. Okay.
For your information, there was Arc nano boosting Jonak in Route 66, right?
Yes.
And that was by accident. That was not our intention. Just letting you know, okay? We're not that crazy.
But
it worked out at the end, but just letting you know.
It was super cool. I enjoyed casting that. I was actually by game. I was casting that one.
Wasn't that actually against Philly?
Maybe.
I don't remember. I just remember Jonak running. It was in point C, and it was in the warehouse. It was the last.
Yeah, he one-shotted Fraggy.
Yeah, he like one-shotted the Wiz. He just ran up in front of their spot and started killing them all. It was glorious. I enjoyed it very much. But no, I did not think that was intentional. As for Pine, I love watching Pine because Pine has just the biggest balls. Let's be real. Like, he will do crazy shit on Widowmaker that no one else will do because it's high risk, high reward. He will flank behind
either
you.
he has like the biggest ball or he has no brain or something. But anyways, yeah.
Oftentimes, there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, a little bit. I was going to say things can go ahead. But he's an absolute pleasure to watch when he's popping off. But when he's dying, you're like, why were you even there in the first place? He definitely plays in a way where you don't expect him to be there because it's kind of objectively stupid for him to be there, but then he kills 4 people. So,
yes.
I've got a question for you. Wizard, you remember back in the LW days, a player called Gambler, and he is actually technically on the roster of the Seoul Dynasty. And I have seen games where a young man called Toby isn't always that sick. Sometimes he has some games that aren't that good. Do you think Gambler will be brought into the mix next stage for Seoul Dynasty? What do you think? Can you tell us something about this player?
So I highly value Gambler's Mercy, and I think a lot of like Overwatch people would agree with that. And relatively, Toby's Mercy isn't that strong. So I think the Seoul coaching staff's idea was that, we can have Toby as mostly for Lucio, and we can have Gambler mostly for Mercy. But the main reason, I guess, I'm just guessing, but they didn't use Gambler at all so far, is that they maybe didn't use Mercy too much, or they were concerned about the team dynamics, like the fundamental mental stuff, like communication and teamwork and everything, team chemistry.
He also didn't have his visa yet.
Oh.
So I believe he actually comes in stage 3.
Yes, I think this is actually when he starts to play now.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you think they'll bring him in, basically?
Next stage? I think so. Like, why not?
So here's another question about the Seoul support. So let's remember fondly when you guys beat Seoul Dynasty. It was a 3-2 victory. You guys had some really cool strats. I correctly predicted before that game, which I would like to congratulate myself for, that you guys would be primarily playing dive and that you would be targeting Jaehong, which you did a lot. And then I think after that win, not only because it sucked for Seoul and they had to prepare for both you and London in the same week, but I think after London saw what you did to them and that it was Toby and Jaehong dying first in like every fight against London, and they got rolled. So I think mostly the question, so you say Toby was brought for Lucio, but Toby's been playing a lot of Ana, and Jaehong's been playing a lot of Zenyatta.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an interesting situation because you'd think maybe Guido could play the Zenyatta, and then Jaehong could maybe come in and play the Ana, but it doesn't seem like they have a great solution to current meta supports as a combination. And also, their tank line has not really been protecting their supports like at all, but also, they have not been killing any of the enemy supports or diving in. In fact, when I watch Seoul Dynasty play, it looks like Zunba and Miro are spinning around in circles, not really helping anybody. And then all of a sudden, Toby and Jaehong are dead and they lose everything.
I think that's a bit exaggerated.
Of course it is. Wait, of course it is.
But
I think just one thing to note.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, this is just like a small point, but I think that the reason they're not playing Jaehong and Guido is because a lot of the time you want like to transition the Ana into a Lucio, like on Gibraltar or
that's what I'm saying.
maps.
They don't have a good solution.
Yeah.
So like on Hanamura, you want, for example, the Ana on defense, but you want usually the Lucio on attack. Yes, I definitely agree. But they don't have an Ana Lucio player is the problem.
Yeah.
They have
to talk about like Guido specifically, like I have no idea is he going to be like permanent bench or something? I don't think I have seen him in Scream environment as well. So
he's playing with their B team.
Oh.
They have enough players to scrim internally now. They have 12 players and they have the players at the right position. So theoretically they can also internally scrim.
Yeah, I think if so, then just maybe they think even like Toby's Ana is better than Guido's Ana, I guess, but who knows?
Because here's the crazy thing. Seoul Dynasty, in terms of just the standings of the league, have only won one less game than Spitfire. But because they've never made the playoffs of the stages, and they've had all these, they haven't been the best Korean team. It feels like there should be some sort of like panic stations, you know. Like, it feels like there's something wrong, and knowing Korean teams, they tend to overreact to losses, you know. So is it not a problem? You think they just continue on, they don't make any changes? I mean, they've got a full roster in theory, right? I think they've got 12. Let me have a look.
Yeah, they have 12.
Yeah, so what do you think of the Seoul Dynasty? They're supposed to be representing Korea. This is the Korean team.
In terms of
your death.
In terms of like track record, they've always kind of had early bumps before actually like doing well. Like they lost to, I believe, Kongdu Panthera twice before winning against them in Apex Season 3, and I think they'd lost to Runaway before beating them in Season 2. So like, I think the situation is obviously very different, but like, it's not unheard of, I guess.
I mean,
what do you think? I mean, you think that you have all the best players on your team, so that's not bad, right? For a team without all the best players, pretty good.
I don't know. Like, I'll just no comment because I just know maybe too much information that I'm not supposed to say, I guess. So.
He just knows too much. That's his problem. He just knows too much. Right, okay, what about this then? So for most of the stage, it looked as though, hey, maybe there will be a Western team joining the playoffs. And this time it should be the LA Gladiators. Right, what do you think of Gladiators missing out on the playoffs? What happened to this team?
I mean, so we were actually expecting Gladiators, maybe like mostly London and maybe Gladiators, and just no Philly, and that happened, and that kind of literally like absolutely fucked us up. So LA Gladiators has been like very strong recently, as you can definitely tell. Not just in matches, but also in scrims, and I think we lost like few script bucks, maybe. I don't even like remember correctly.
Holy
but
shit, triple amazing. 3 stars out of 3. Amazing. Okay.
But you know, here's the thing. I think they have this something. I think they come up with the something like somewhat okay strategy. Yeah, and then it's just not their player is okay. Also, their like strategy is, you know, fine in general, I think. So we're kind of like worried about playing against Gladiators a little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
So they are good in conclusion, yeah.
Monty, so why did this team miss the playoffs then? Lost both games, even lost to Boston as well. What happened to this team?
So the Gladiators matches this week were interesting to me. Again, I think we go back to Philly's improvement and we talk about how they were baiting the Gladiators in, and they started to focus down Fissure a lot of the time. I don't think the team's communication is perfect yet, even though they have a lot of talent. Also, Carpe went absolutely nuts in that game, and they weren't playing around Carpe very well. So I think that was part of that loss. Gladiators' loss to Boston was a bit more confusing to me, but I actually think probably most of that was after they lost the first game. I think that they were just like, oh shit, like we can't make playoffs anymore. And I think they just probably didn't have a lot of motivation to play after that point in time. As for the Gladiators' improvement, obviously Fissure is a fantastic tank. I think most people would rank him as the second best tank in the world after Gesture right now. But in the potential tank ratings, I guess Jonas and Mano will be, the best tank, according to our guest here, in the future. But in real tank ratings right now, I think people would put Fissure there. And you would not? Fissure is not the second best tank in the world. Anyway, shaking his head. But in any case, certainly an elite tank. And that was a big reason behind their success. Obviously, hydration has also been diversifying, and they show a lot of weird compositions. I think it's very hard to prepare for the Gladiators because you don't know what they're going to do. They play a lot of attack Sombra. They play Doomfist on certain maps. And I think for most teams, it's difficult to get even practice against the Doomfist or a team that uses Doomfist well because they're basically the only one who does it. So you can only really theory craft about the Doomfist, and your players are never going to have the experience of literally playing against it, especially one as good at Doomfist as hydration is. So I think one of the things that Gladiators does well is they're very hard to prepare for because no one is playing the same style that they're playing.
Go ahead.
No, go.
Well, I just wanted to say that like I think Asher's also been more consistent this stage just because I think you might have actually made this point on the broadcast, but having like a Korean Winston and a Korean Tracer might actually be really
I was
good.
actually going to bring that up. You reminded me. Talking about Gesture and Prophet earlier and how important it is to have tank or main tank Tracer synergy, and that has happened very well with Fissure and Asher. They look significantly more coordinated than they used to, which has been a big part of it.
And just it's a little bit off topic, but just to talk about our main tanks, our team basically demanded them to play in a specific way for like team strategy purpose. For example, in stage 1, when we're playing like Anubis or Horizon, we're like basically forcing them to jump from the main, and they are gonna fucking headshot it by Widow and die instantly, pretty much, or get Junkrat trapped or something, right? Yeah. But we basically demanded those kind of play as a team, and they executed that play. And I think it goes kind of same for Fraggy. I think Fraggy was demanded to go in and like as a front lane, and which makes them more vulnerable. Basically, he's like throwing his body, he's sacrificing himself to make Carpe look better or like EQO look better, and people just don't fucking understand and like just rate our those.
But
yeah, so just do not underestimate our main things, please. Like it's.
I don't think people think you have bad main tank.
So
I mean, talking about second best, like pretty sure.
I love it.
All right. Well, I think just a point I want to make about Fraggy in particular is that that's always kind of been his style, though. So I feel like if anything, it was probably the team telling him to play more like baity and more. Yeah, and that actually turned out to be really good. So, yeah.
The bias is so real. I'm enjoying this.
Harsha,
yes,
you are not on this team, so come on. What do you think of Fissure? What do you think of him?
I think he's really good. I think he has like very aggressive tendencies, and like sometimes it works, and sometimes it kind of just looks like he's feeding. But like, I feel like if you bring in I don't know. It might have to do with communication. Maybe that not everybody's on the same page. I know that like Bishu has to translate in game for in case like a phrase is too big for Fissure to say, just because he isn't as experienced in English or whatever. Maybe that'll like fix it. But I also think that his over aggressive tendencies like do actually hurt Gladiators at times.
Yeah,
like, Wizard, come on. Isn't this like unfair for Fissure? Like, he literally plays with a bunch of Westerners. He has to shot call. He speaks in Korean, lets someone else translate it, and is really good. And you're like, yeah, but my tanks are better because he... Like, come on.
I mean, I admit that there was a time when Fissure was pretty much the best tank, and we copied his... we learned from like his Winston how to use like ultimate better, and appreciate Fissure for that. Yeah. Absolutely. His like
his Winston uses
Winston ultimate mechanic was like next level at the moment. At that moment, now it's kind of like average, but but yeah. So like, if you want to fight me with that, like who's the second best tank at the moment? Not about the potential. Like at the moment, I have the database and evidence backing up. Just fight me, like seriously.
Wait a minute. What is the conclusion of the database?
Wizard, you're gonna like try and I'm never gonna wingman barman. You're gonna just be like fighting everybody by the end.
What is the conclusion of the database then? Who is better than Fissure? You haven't yet narrowed that. Who's better than Fissure? Come on.
Wait, what is it?
Who is better than Fissure? Nobody.
What does the database tell us?
Most handsome, best main tank in the world.
Yeah. What does the database tell us? Who is better than Fissure?
So once again, I think at the moment, Gesture would be the best.
Yes. No one's arguing that.
Who else?
Okay, and then for the second best main tank, I think it should be our player. Our player, not
no. Don't keep saying our player. What player? Say his name.
I mean, so okay.
What is his name? Say his name.
Okay.
His name was Robert Paulson.
Please. listen, please listen. So to talk about our main tanks, they both have
Stop
this
saying main tank. Tell me his name.
they have this fucking ups and downs, like both of them. Like, so there was a actually this is something to talk about. So
Yeah, come on.
I'm loving this.
Janus, he has ups and downs, like a lot. So when he's playing,
I fucking
like,
know. I've seen some of them.
yeah, and same thing for Mano, and
Yeah.
yeah. So like I can't really tell, like, seriously.
It's a shame you can't fuse them both into one person and make an actual answer to this fucking question. Because which one of them's better than Fisher, right?
But
Neither.
all I know.
By committee,
Jasper's
they
the
are better.
best,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
second best tank is not Fisher, not Gamsu, not Nomi, not I don't know, like Fate. Just it should be New York Excelsior main thing. I'm almost saying, like,
Just whichever one of those ones.
Whichever one's playing better at the current time.
yeah, exactly, absolutely, yeah.
All right, I don't know what to do with that information, but there we go.
Listen, Monty, what's great about this is he's actually gone like full Alex Jones, because it's a famous thing that whenever Alex Jones is arguing, he just says like, I've got the documents. It's like, unless you just go through all the documents, you can't corroborate what he's saying, can you? You have to just trust him. Like, oh, all right, you've got the documents, sound. I've got the database. You're all inside my database. It's just fucking East
I mean,
Germany
but
or something.
thing is, my database is actually working though. Like, it's actually.
I want to
working.
see your database. It's like that fucking mind
you have-
palace out of Sherlock or something. What are you talking about?
He has the
know.
database, which we can't even verify.
No, Monty, this database has got a fucking air gap or whatever you call it, where, like, you know, it's like in some hermetically sealed area underground. You have to put a hazmat suit on to get inside. Code, you have to punch in the code, which every day changes because it's the name of a different New York Excelsior main tank. That happens to be the best at the moment.
I mean,
you get
seriously,
gate entrance.
I would love to share it. If I didn't sign the contract that it says those materials like confidential information, but you know,
Right.
I can't do it legally.
Exactly.
So.
It's all right. I'll get Julian Assange on the case, mate. We'll crack your fucking database by then. Right. Okay, here's the question, though. So, since you were talking, Wizard, you've set me up here. So, at the moment, Fisher, you know, for my money, second best tank in the Overwatch League. Fisher, at the moment, amazing tank player, has revolutionised Gladiators. But you know what? It doesn't stop there, Wizard, because they're getting another tank player, mate. They're getting Void, formerly of the Kongdu Panthera. He's joining their team. Bishu's going out, apparently, as it would appear. What do you think of this move?
I definitely think Void is really good. So he actually amazed me a little bit at like when he was playing at Kongdu Pantera. Like, he was really good. And he like had this kind of like synergy with Fisher as well, although it was a completely different meta though. But so I'm very much excited to see like how it go in Gliders with the tank duo. But at the same time, I think Bishu does so much in Gladiators, because here's why. And so first of all, my real name is Hyeong-seok Kim. And Bishu's real name is Hyeong-seok Kim, so we have the same name. And then so
What's the relevance of that? The fuck?
just anything, you know, like unrelated
Trivia.
information.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay, right.
But anyways, so
So you
when
already
I
had
was-
that connection, same name.
Yeah, when I was like gathering TSM like crews, so like I was very much interested in having Bishu, mostly because like not just his mechanics and like gameplay, his communication, and he's like he's a really smart player that brings like even like I think having him and having Void would make the team atmosphere like very differently. I think that's how I see. So, and I think he's like
sacrifice synergy for potentially an individual mechanical upgrade.
But question is Bishu that relatably mechanically bad, worse compared to Void? I can't really tell because I haven't watched Void playing recently, and also
on the new Diva at all, by the way.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him play on the new Diva.
Exactly, that's my point. So I am like more than happy to see like how it goes, and I guess maybe Glader is just trying those out, but I'll be surprised if I don't see Bishu at all.
What do you think, Harsha?
I mean,
Go on then, Monty.
Go for it.
I mean,
Come on.
I mean, I do kind of agree in a sense, but I do think that Void is probably a better mechanical player. We haven't seen him on New Diva, to be fair, but like just in general, from what I remember, he was like a very good Diva player. And he also, what impressed me about him was that he was like able to balance both peeling and diving like really well with Kongdu Panthera. Obviously, like Diva is very different now, so I don't know how that will affect what he's able to do. But I think that in terms of like synergy with Fisher, it should be really good. But yeah, like obviously, so from knowing like how Bishu operates in teams, like he's very, he takes over the comms. Like he's very integral, I would say, to comms. And he's also like somebody that keeps like the environment happy, or like tells everybody focus on the next fight, look forward. And without him, I don't know, maybe the team takes like a turn for the worse. So it's definitely like interesting. It's like a huge gambit, I think. I don't know whether it'll pay off, but it could be really insane for them.
I used to think of Void and Meko as being the top two divas in Korea in the back in Apex. So I was excited. It's interesting to me that he was not picked up with the rest of Kongdu for the Spitfire. Which
they stated why actually. Actually no. The ESPN stated why. Yeah. ESPN stated why. They just said that there were like issue. I'm not sure how much they said, so I'll just say that there were like issues in terms of negotiations.
Okay, so I guess that was the reason why. It is nice to see him a capable player. We haven't seen him on the new DV. I think that as the English of players like Fissure and Asher improves, that will go hand in hand with Bishu's individual improvement. Because imagine trying to be Bishu in this situation and attempting to play Diva and shot call and translate between two halves of your team simultaneously. Yeah. So I'm also not convinced that this is a great move. I don't know if it's a good move or not. And we'll just have to see how it works out, because I do think that they're like these guys, that there is a trade in Void's individual ability, which again, we don't know on New Diva, versus what Bishu is bringing to the team in terms of communication.
Yeah.
See, what I love is this is exactly what I talked about in my recent video. Like the big thing is, as soon as you get Koreans, it's like fucking termites to start spreading. So as soon as he gets in the team, what do you know? Who's on his speed dial? We're having a bit of Trump Fisher's like, it's going well, but we could still fix things. What would you suggest? Bring up my old mate that I used to play with. Why don't we bring him in? By the way, all I'm saying to the rest of you is, you're like, oh, cool, now we've got 2 Korean tanks. This is awesome. You all better play well too, because he knows some other Korean people. So I'm just saying, you're all on notice. Also, by the way, Monty, just as a sidebar, on Twitter, when they announced that Void was leaving Kongdu, this is just what I love about Koreans, because Koreans don't always understand stuff. They don't understand what hashtags are, right? Hashtags are supposed to be so you can make a catchy thing that everyone uses and it gets trending. Their hashtag is Void_, all one word, thank you for all your efforts. And I click on it, it's only them have tweeted it 3 times. Like, that's not how hashtags work, okay? It's not like Tumblr where you just put your comments in the hashtags or whatever. I just love Koreans interacting with the West. It's my favorite shit.
Is this a time where I need to apologize for as a Korean?
No, not at all.
You don't need to apologize, mate. You've done everything, well, except for all that bullshit about making a bold statement about the best tank and then fucking walking it right back. And then
somebody watching this thing, please hack my computer and just watch all the data.
Don't
and
hack his computer.
Be convinced. Don't convinced, please.
don't hack his computer. Please don't.
Okay. I love the way though here's the mad thing though, Monty. Normally people actually will use stats to buttress their own opinion, but he actually really believes that if anyone just enters his database, they will always come to the conclusion he comes to.
Yep. The numbers don't lie. He actually has a perfect functional mathematical every single game of Overwatch that will ever be played.
Even though you would think, surely, when you run this database, it's a bunch of stats.
Numbers.
You still have to take the conclusion. He makes it sound like a fucking AI, like X Machine or something. It just like
you cut out there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about numbers. So numbers don't lie for sure, right? But it's extremely important what kind of numbers you're looking at. Yeah. So I really hate Winston's lab. I mean, so like, it's mind blowing that people are actually believing Winston's Lab like ranking or something. This player is like 1,100 blah 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 rating, and
yes,
where did that come from? Like, I don't get it.
To be fair to Winston's Lab, they are doing what they can with the limited information they have. I think Winston's Lab would do a better job. Obviously, they have smart people over there. If there was an open API to the statistics that they could get the information that we have access to.
Well, here's the thing, Wizard. I'm actually with you on this, mate, because we have the same thing in Counter-Strike, which is the main website in Counter-Strike is called HLTV.org, and they have all the stats. And what happens is they did the same thing. Well, obviously they did it before Winston's Lab, which is they created a HLTV.org rating rather. And every match, as well as all the normal stats you see, the equation spits out a rating for the player in that game. And the thing is, just like you're saying here, a lot of people actually use that as the like sort of ultimate metric. Like if the rating says that this was the best player in the match, it was the best player in the match. Now here's the problem with that. First of all, to kind of give Winston's Lab credit and HLTV.org, it's better than nothing. Like it's a cool attempt to try and do something and try and gauge all these things. But the reason I have always been triggered in Counter-Strike when people took it for granted that it must be correct is because a person decided which of the metrics were rated in what way. Like it wasn't like the computer. It's not like when computers make computer chips now. Like an actual person decided a kill is worth this much relative to an assist, relative to staying alive. You know, all these factors in Counter-Strike that you put in. And the problem with that is, even if you could do it like amazingly, like about as well as you could get it, there'd still be scenarios where that wouldn't always work. Like where the number could never tell you what a person did and an intangible thing was great, you know. So I'm kind of with you on that, but so your main problem really isn't the rating; it's that people just take it as gospel, right? They think it's a fact. Whoever had the best rating was the best player in the game.
It seems like people just don't understand. It's like there should be less credibility, like with that. Just people are just totally believing that, and it's fucking mind blowing for me. And it's just and so like when I was coaching Arc Lucio, he was staying too far back because he didn't want to die, and I just told him straight, you know, I want you to die more. Just go protect your Zenyatta, and I just don't fucking care about your KDA. Don't fucking care about like the feeling when you die by their tracer. Just go protect your Zenyatta and just die. It's perfectly fine. And those like KDA and Winston's that people will say like if that's like everything, and there are other factors that matters much more. And everything's related. So if you're playing aggressive, if you're playing like, you know, just if you're sacrificing for your team for like team strategy purpose, you will have less KDA for sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are playing bad. You're just playing in a way that, you know, like supporting your team. And just don't don't get it. Like it's mind blowing. And just you can tell WizardHyeong is very new to like super public esports because he's actually getting tilted by the idiots who say things. He hasn't developed the malaise that we have to getting constantly attacked for our analysis or opinions over the years, where we're just like, those people are just dumb. Just ignore them. Like
the
whatever.
The sickest thing is he's running in like, you can't believe this. You know they are saying that this player's better. You're like, who? Let me have a look. Reddit user 1789. Are you fucking kidding me? It's not even anyone we know. It's not even another famous person.
Yeah, and you know he gets the worst of it too because he can read Reddit and Inven. Oh my god! Like holy shit! Like that guy, his mind is the fortress of his mind is constantly under assault by idiots in two different languages at the same time. I don't know how you keep it together, man. Trust me, you will eventually just you'll eventually just learn to just lie down and let it all wash over you. It'll be a great exercise in Buddhist mind training. You know, just keep your calm. You can't get mad when the people look at numbers, because then you start to think about how everybody does that in every facet of your life, and then you just get super depressed about the human race. So it's all downhill from. I'm sorry, Wizard. It really is. All downhill from here for you.
I mean, I get it, but still, I get it. Still,
I took a break from reading Reddit like at all for like a long time, and then recently relapsed and read it after Sinatra's debut, and I've seen some very like dumb opinions, like
Dude,
Oh,
you let the barbarians in through the gates of Rome. You can't do that, dude. You have to keep the barbarians outside. All right.
Here's the thing, okay? It reminds me of this. Of a stand-up special that the comedian Bill Burr did a couple of years ago, where he was talking about this really scandalous scenario that had happened, if you remember, with the guy who used to own the LA Clippers, who was like an old guy. He's called Donald Sterling, I think it was. And what happened was he said some comments that people took. I mean, it was privately, but he was recorded, and they were racist. Okay, and this is Bill Burr's take on it, which is quite funny. Is like, this is an old guy who's mega rich and owns a sports team. Like, what did he think they said privately? Like, did he think, like, think about it logically. In private, that guy's not going to have the public facing political opinions of a 25-year-old, is he? Like, he's an old guy who's in private.
Yeah, this was pretty bad, though.
No, you are missing the point.
All right.
This is how people talk. Well, you can pretend like no one ever says that stuff privately if you want me, but I don't live in that world. I don't understand that people say different things publicly and privately. But the point here is, it's the same premise for Reddit. This is what people don't think about Harsha. When they open the YouTube comments or the Reddit comments, they think to themselves, oh, let's see what people are saying. What they don't stop and think is, wait a minute, what's the best case scenario? What could they say here, right? They're not going to give you some straight fire analysis, some amazing point. It's very unlikely, right? Odds are, all you're basically doing is gambling that they don't say really stupid stuff that triggers you. That's it. All you're doing is, that's the best case scenario is that it's all just sort of like a bit weak, like, yeah, it's all right, yeah, they're okay, I didn't say anything too offensive, You're just gambling your own sanity.
What people definitely don't do, of course, is come to sports and look for it as a medium of entertainment, which they are emotionally invested in a particular team because they feel it represents them and the region from where they're from. And they spend 3 hours a week watching their favorite team and then emotionally ejaculate on the internet about their opinions compared to people who spend their entire lives and careers researching it and probably have at least a few explanations for why.
And by the way, let's be real. Like, that is the appropriate place for them to do that. Like, if you are a fan of the Dallas Fuel and you've just read all these statements by the different players and you are upset at the management, the right place to do it is actually on Reddit, by the way, because in theory, Hastro doesn't have to go and read your comment on Reddit. But to Hastro directly, along with a small message that perhaps he might like to kill himself, isn't the appropriate place to do it. That's not really the way to do it,
Speaking of which, I'm pretty sure Hastro knows Hastro has problems right now. I don't think tweeting directly at him is going to enlighten him.
And also, he
the
does need to be alive to solve the problem. I can confirm that. Like, that. By the way, having no owner and us all having to attend a terrible funeral, that's not going to solve any problems in the Dallas funeral. If anything, make it worse. Like, it might become complete anarchy then, By the way, as a last team to talk about, because we talk about a lot of teams here, I thought not to talk about Dallasville because the problem is, like, no one knows anything, no one can say anything publicly, it's a clusterfuck, we all know that. But the team I actually wanted to talk about was the LA Valiant, because I saw, first of all, it was basically said that, like, Silk Thread will not be returning to the Valiant. That is done, apparently, Monty. And then secondly, there is a rumor that apparently they will swap Unco from the Valiant and they will get Costa from Fuel. So what do we think about the Valiant in this?
Okay,
so obviously a flawed team.
Can we talk about the Valiant's media strategy recently? Because you saw, I'm sure you were aware of the video. So a couple weeks ago,
transparency is a beautiful thing, right?
Yes, they tweeted like, oh, we're going to have the most transparent thing in esports, a transparent video series. I'm like, oh God, this will not end well for anybody. Literally nobody wants this, because you can say there's transparency, but having worked in teams and players over the years, but if you're making like a 15-minute video, any single action is going to be blown out of proportion to it happening all the time. So you can offer transparency into an action, but that could be an outlier. And yeah, it happened and affect things, but it's not indicative of somebody's behavior 24/7. Could have just been a bad moment. Could have been a bad week. You just don't know. So I think that's like a mistake, because people infer extreme. You want to show the juiciest stuff, so people just assume the extremes are happening constantly. So there's this clip that they decided to air because the team had released this on their YouTube or whatever on the Overwatch League broadcast, where Noah Winston is literally in a car with agilities outside of in and out, and there's like a camera peering over the back seat between them that's like go back and forth, and they're like, Noah's basically saying, this is your shot. This is like basically implying this is his last chance. He's got to show everything that he's got right now. And I'm just like, oh my God, this poor kid is like 18 years old and he just wanted to eat a fucking hamburger. And now he's just getting grilled in a car with like a camera shoved into his face from the back seat. I just felt like horrible about this whole situation. And I don't even know why you would publicize that at all. It was super awkward. Oh, also the text there was also hilarious. It was like, so right before this clip comes on, it says something like Noah Winston summoned agility. Like Noah Winston is some sort of emperor that he summons you to his court in the In-N-Out parking lot in a car, and you're just like, what? Whoa! What is happening here?
Meet me in my office. Right, there we go. So what do you want? Burger, fries. Right. Bring him anything he wants. Right. We've brought you here to discuss your career. Yeah, ketchup, please. You got one shot. You got one shot of this. You're gonna eat this burger. You're gonna go out there, and you're either gonna knock it out the park, or we'll never be having burgers again. So
anyway, it was incredibly
you know how I do
awkward.
Things.
Everything about it was awkward because it's just this black screen that says Noah Winston summoned agilities to the In-N-Out or whatever to have a conversation. You're both basically like, why would you? Like, I understand why you use the word summon, but that's usually used if you're some sort of ruler. And then second off, it just, I don't know.
I'm looking forward to the episode where they introduce Costa and a Taco Bell.
Well, one of the things that like really tilted me a lot, well, it didn't tilt me that much, but it tilted me a little bit, is that this is like actual transparency. Like you don't really want to publicize this, but it is like what happens in a team, right?
Yeah, sure.
But then whenever I said something along the lines of like, this is what happens when you get transparency, and people are like, no, well, Outlaws is transparent. The way
How
they
do you
do
know
media is
that?
different. Yeah, you don't know shit about them.
Well, it's like you said before, Harsha, about the Sinatra scenario. This is the problem.
Yeah.
This is why that famous scenario of like a little information is dangerous, because when you get a little information, you might make the assumption you have all the information. And so the problem here is people are already assuming, oh, look at how stupid Valiant is. What a train wreck. All the other teams aren't like that. You have no fucking clue what those other teams are like. I'll bet some of them are worse. They just don't publicize it.
Yeah.
Harsha's seen some shit. You could tell he knows some shit as well.
I've been to In-N-Out a few
He also
times.
knows too much, Wizard. By the way, Wizard, if you ever think that your teams have any problems, just watch any of these videos, mate. Have a tune into the fucking Dallas fuel station every now and then. You'll just literally go back. You'll be kissing fucking Janice's feet. Oh, I love you guys so much. You're so wonderful. You do everything I say. Thank you so much.
I mean, I care about making our team and making our just making the healthier environment. I actually do care, and I try so hard, and that's why Mano yesterday said at the press conference, like, what is the best part of your about your coaches, and he said he makes us happy. Like he makes our pro gamer life happy. That's what he said, literally. So I do care about just making those like healthier environment, and I just am aware of and I've been unhealthy environments. Like there
LW.
were a few, not just
Every NA
LW.
team. Well, you're in TSM for a start off, mate, so I think we fucking know about that. So don't worry about it.
He's been through the wars.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I was in W and Gale 4 had the problems, and then they just wage thefted all the players and myself, and it's still not fixed. It's still not like solved. So
Yeah. What do you think of the LA Valiant?
About that kind of thing, or in general?
Well, no, here's the thing. They started the Overwatch League so well. Ever since then, it's been somewhat downhill. They've had a lot of flaws. They've been putting people in and out of the roster. Now they're making these big changes. What do you think of the team and where they're headed?
I don't know. Like, I feel like they need a strong leader. Like, I don't know. So they just recently switched their coach. I think Coach Moon is their new coach, if I'm correct. Yeah. But if he can bring that kind of like leadership to the team, maybe it will work again.
So what do you think about Coach Moon from his time on Mighty?
no clue. Like I don't know him that well.
He does not recall. He pleads the fifth on everything to do with the Korean Sea. We get that. Okay. So, what do you think then, Monty, of these changes?
So here's the thing I don't understand. I guess maybe Valiant, the logic, if this is a true situation behind putting Custa onto the Valiant, would be that Custa offers, I think, a stronger Lucio potentially, as well as shot calling abilities, which is why he was brought onto Dallas in the first place. I think that if it seems like Dallas is having problems with their supports, and so by bringing Unko on, they have a stronger flex support mechanically, but it doesn't really solve their shot calling issues. So it seems like they're just trading one problem for another for Dallas. So I do think it's hard to believe that they would get rid of Custa at this point, which I think if I was Dallas would be one of the players I would rebuild around rather than trading away.
I think he's actually been their best support throughout this entire Overwatch League season. Especially
because they've said they value his communication as well. Just to know that Harry and Chips are not the most communicative supports. So I don't know if I believe this rumor. I would find it very strange if this actually went through. But regardless, I think the Valiant, the Kariv experiment, I think has gone okay, but I still believe that he's going to be a better off in support. But they don't have a strong Lucio on the roster with Verbo right now to pair with Unko. And apparently Kariv can't do that. If I assume that what they would do if they did get Custa is have Kariv and Custa play together, and that might solve some of their problems. But as for the secondary DPS role, to me, that's the biggest need that they have right now, because Kariv is not a long-term option. Agilities is somewhat a niche player on Genji, and I would say Roadhog are probably his two best heroes. And they may need just more DPS players to fill into a rotation.
What type of DPS player do they need?
Soldier.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was what Silk Thread was supposed to do, right? I think they need somebody who can play Widowmaker besides Kariv so that they can play Widow Tracer. That was actually particularly important this last stage. And soon, when Kariv wasn't playing, had to fill both of those roles at the same time. They may just need a more flexible DPS, like projectile specialist, or a more well-rounded guy. And if they want to play the Genji, then they...
I've got a name for you. Recry.
Well, he was always more of a hit scan player, so Recry coming back up. I actually came up on the Reddit today and saw that he had been working in a factory while doing.
His Pharah in hands was amazing at the Africa first blue time. So
I really like Recry as a player, so I'm not sure why he hasn't been seeing so much success. I always thought he was the better DPS player on Africa compared to.
Yeah, he was better than Arhan in my opinion as well.
So it's weird to me that I think eventually probably he'll get picked up, but
I mean, to think about that LA Valiant situation, once again, I think it's just simply fundamental thing. So I didn't watch the video with the agility and Noah Winston
and the in and out,
which has now become a meme. Which also, by the way, if you had to take somebody to talk about a possible roster move, to take them to in and out, the representation of moving players in and out, actually brilliant fucking metaphor. I don't even know if that was intentional, but I was super enjoying that, the meta level of
it. They did bring Hollywood producers in. That was good.
Oh, now I get it. Now I get it.
Plus, part of the problem is, here's the thing. I know part of what Noah has always done when he's been in the Immortals team is he has always been the front-facing element. He's always come out with the statements, and he's been the person to directly address the fans, etc. But that works in a very produced setting where it's you one-on-one. Here's the problem if you're Noah Winston in this setting, right up here. Part of the issue is because he's such a young guy, and just the way he comes off, he does kind of have that Alex Garfield, and I would say David, Mark Zuckerberg feel, where it's they don't come off that well in the social interactions as well. It does seem a little bit you got one shot, kid. Show me what you got. And then when they're out, they're them's the breaks, you're out.
I mean,
but here's two coupons for in and out. Right.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt, Wizard. You were going back to, you were saying you think they lack fundamentals.
Yeah, and like honestly, if you take a close like observation, like on like most teams that are having problems,
Yes.
like they just have this fundamental problems. Like mostly, like if you hear the rumors or if you talk to their players, which is we hear stuff like obviously, right? So
Yes.
it's just I think as a coach, I think I mostly do two things: just understanding the game and maybe more importantly, understanding the players, like understanding the people in our team, like, and it's significantly important. Like, just yeah. So
Well, that's because you're the greatest Hyung. You're the wizard of Hyung's older brother, is what that means in Korean, right? So you got it in your ID.
but Hyung is not older brother. I named myself Wizard Hyung because my name is Hyeong-seok. Just
Oh, got
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You keep forgetting
Slightly.
what your name is the
So
key to
this
everything.
actually came from League of Legends. I was playing Hyeong-seok support, and I was able to reach Challenger with Hyeong-seok support. And my in-game name at the moment was V WizardHyeong V like Hyeong-seok popsai in Korean. But yeah, just
Still convenient that it has that double.